Yes, good evening. I'd like to call to order the Gig Harbor City Council meeting of Monday, November 22nd at 2020. The year is 2021. The time is 5:35. This may be accessible through Zoom at the Zoom ID that we posted on our website or by calling the number we've posted. We've got an ability for people to listen in as well as be here presently. And soon in the next couple of months, when the container ships get all into port, we will actually have the video equipment here to where you can actually Zoom as well as see individual people from home too. So we're working on that. With that, I'd like to have a roll call. Councilmember Denson.
Here.
Councilmember Rodenberg. Here. Councilmember Wook.
Here.
Councilmember Hines.
Here.
This is Mayor Kuhn. Councilmember Franich.
Here.
Councilmember Abersold.
Here.
Councilmember Markley.
Here.
Thank you. And from staff, we have our interim city administrator, Tony Pasecki.
Here.
And our finance director, Dave Rodenbach.
Here.
And our attorney, Daniel Kinney.
Here.
And with our public works director, Jeff Langhelm, I believe is back there. Thank you. And I'm sure we will have other staff join us. With that, I'd like to join us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin this council meeting, we would like to recognize that we are gathered on not only the ancestral and traditional lands of the Squabobs band of the Puyallup tribe of Indians, but also on the site of one of the largest and longest standing villages of the people, the original inhabitants of Gig Harbor. I'd like to do one change to the agenda, just that we would we will have if there's no objection, we will have a 15-minute executive session at the beginning of new business item 4. Let me see, just a second.
Yes, that's the correct one there.
Excuse me?
That is the correct item. Is the first reading and adoption of ordinance 1475, temporary suspension of special use provisions.
Right, and I did have in front of me a minute ago the RCW of that, which we need to read off. Here it is. No, that's yours.
4230-110I.
Thank you. Are there any other changes? Yes, Councilmember Rodenberg.
I'd like to have consent agenda item number 4 moved to new business.
Okay, that's fine. Is there any small question that would?
I think there's a larger question.
Okay, sounds great. If there's no objection, we'll move that to the beginning of new business. Okay. All right, would you, if you don't care, would you mind turning your light off so I know when?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 items. So if there's, do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, let's do okay, we have Councilmember Franich, and we have seconded by Councilmember Wook. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have 2 presentations tonight. Our first is our oath of office for Municipal Court Judge Sandy Allen. Sandy Allen, could you raise your hand for a moment? There you are. Okay. Sandy Allen was born and raised in Washington State. She attended college at Central Washington University and attended University of Washington Law School. Sandy became an attorney in 1988 and was the prosecuting attorney for several small municipalities. She also worked as a criminal defense attorney. Sandy has been a pro tem judge for over 22 years for numerous jurisdictions and currently sits as a pro tem judge in Pierce and Kitsap County District Courts and the Tacoma, Puyallup, and Fife Municipal Courts. Sandy Allen was appointed as a city municipal court judge 19 years ago, and she is currently the Milton Municipal Court Judge. As a judge, Sandy has been very involved with the governance and education of the judges and recently finished a 3-year term as one of the deans of the Washington State Judicial College. Sandy also taught at the Judicial College for 6 years. And right now I will go down and we will actually swear her into oath of office. Had the honor of being on an interview panel with different judges, and I was just thrilled with the knowledge, the expertise, and the gentle but firm leadership that she seemed to present. So I actually had told her and several others that I was going to tell the panel that I wanted to go back out for another round of new interviews if we didn't pick her. Even though the other ones were good, they were not to the caliber that I wanted our city.
Thank you.
Thank you. So please raise your right hand. I, Sandy Allen, do solemnly swear
I, Sandy Allen, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of the Judge of the Municipal Court
of the office of the Judge of the Municipal Court
of the City of Gig Harbor, Washington,
of the City of Gig Harbor, Washington,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
And I bet you've read that a lot more than I've read this.
Quite a few times,
Yeah.
yes.
I, Kid Kuhn, the duly elected and qualified mayor in and for the city, do hereby appoint Sandy Allen, Judge of the Municipal Court of the City of Gig Harbor, Washington. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like you to be able to say a few words if you would. We're thrilled to have you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kuhn and council for giving me the opportunity to be sworn in today before you. I'd first like to take the opportunity to thank my family and friends for being here today and for supporting me and for always being my biggest supporters. I would like to acknowledge 2 of my friends and mentor judges, retired Pierce County District Court Judge Judy Jasfrika and retired Pierce County District Court Judge Maggie Ross that are here with us today. I would also like to thank Stacy Kohlberg, my court administrator. I can tell her and thank her for being here today. I can tell from the things that we've already accomplished together that we're going to make a great team. Being judge is one of the most challenging jobs that I've ever had, but also the most rewarding. I can assure you that my courtroom will be a place where the laws are followed and all issues will be fairly and equitably resolved. And I will always treat everyone that appears before me with dignity and respect. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to work with all of you, and I can't wait to get officially started. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy, Stacy, not to put you on the spot, but do you want to say a couple words as our head person running our court?
Well, I would just first like to tell everyone how excited we are to have Judge Sandy Allen. We have been counting the days. And I know Sandy from a few times. She previously pro tem'd here in our court. And I know that she will serve our community well. Her reputation follows her, and she's highly respected in the legal community. So I feel very fortunate to have her here on our bench. So welcome to Judge Allen.
Thank you so much. And we're thrilled to have your family here too. So thank you, Sandy. Thank you. Sure, sure. Okay, our second item tonight is a conservation property acquisition. And I have given a PowerPoint to Josh Stecker. Don't start it yet, but Josh, if you would put it up on the screen. And then the people at home will be able to see this as well. I will wait until he has it up there. Okay, so before you start it, so this is the city of Gig Harbor has a rare opportunity, and myself and council has has realized that this is a rare opportunity. So we have a chance of buying 23 acres of beautiful land that's just about 4 blocks off from the bay at Donkey Park. So it's across the street from the Mexican restaurant up on Burnham Drive. It's 23 acres that actually has not been built on before. And we've talked about it before, but we also want the public to be aware of it. And the public may comment during the non-agenda items, and we will actually answer some of their questions if they have it. We've entered in a purchase sale agreement. We actually have about 2 months until December 28th to fulfill it. We're doing our due diligence. It was explained in my live Facebook on Friday, as well as my mayor's blog, that we are doing the full appraisal to figure out what it is actually is worth. Environmental phase 1, the title search, and making sure that all of our T's are crossed. And we want to hear from the public tonight or on December 13th. It's a beautiful chance. It will be over 40 homes and built on relatively soon if we don't purchase it. Then it's lost forever, but the owners of the property would rather sell it to us and preserve it than have it actually turned into housing. And so it's a rare opportunity. So we did a PowerPoint. It's only about 4.5 minutes, and we'd like to share it with the public. And there should be sound, Josh. Josh, can you make the sound work, please? So this is actually a road trail that's on it right now. There's probably 150-year-old trees, maples, firs, evergreens, cedars, and this is a road that actually goes in, and also it's a trail. It actually goes about 15 feet from the Cushman Trail. So right down lower than that would actually be the harbor by the beach basket. And there were actually a lot of birds. I don't know why I had asked Josh to make the sound work, but this trail goes down, and you can see it actually goes down and then comes back up again. We have 11.5 acres that we are actually in the process of purchasing right below this. That's right above the wastewater treatment plant. So this would fulfill that whole area.
If I can add something to Mayor.
Go ahead. Anyone can join in.
I toured 5 people from the county. They were all, biologists and naturalists and trail people, and they were blown away. They said that this type of urban forest does not exist anywhere else. I mean, yes, you can go out on the Key Peninsula for things like this, but the fact that this was right downtown, they were just in awe. I mean, they were so excited about it. And one of them was shocked at the fact that there's very few invasive species in there. They saw a little bit of holly here and there, but that was it. No Scotch broom. I mean, it's absolutely a unicorn of a property. They loved it.
It's true. I mean, I've walked it 7 times, and I actually haven't seen any blackberries, which is not native. That is actually a little hole right there that actually where the road curves. So it's that close to the Cushman Trail. And we were even specific, make sure that there weren't other parts of the forest that we were buying, that this is a lot of the whole thing. If we don't purchase the property, we've shown a few pictures of what it will possibly look like with other developments. So Josh, let's see. Yeah, keep going. You could freeze that. Stop right there. Okay, so just so you can you put your cursor at those trees up in the middle by those two, yeah, higher? Those trees are actually set to be cut. That would be Heron's Key Phase 2. Just to show you that there's a lot of trees there that this is around here that's going to go away. And then if you go to the red buildings there, okay, that's Swift Water School. So the trees right where Josh's cursor, just come a little bit to the left. Those trees will come down because that's going to be our sports complex. And then if the trees in front of this white building, right in front of us, all these trees are actually Phase 3 of our sports complex. So there's a chance that all those trees will probably come down too. And then the trees above that keep going right there. That's all that property is for sale. So this just shows you that most of the trees that you actually see in this picture, which is near there, are going to be gone within probably about 5 years. So we've all seen the growth. Go ahead and complete the video, Josh.
Mayor,
Yes.
that area just left of the traffic circle,
Uh-huh.
the city owns that as well.
That's what I said would be the sports complex Phase 3.
I'm not, just that little, like a third of an acre, I think. I'm not sure you want to turn that into the sports complex.
Okay. We really got to fix this audio. That's not at all how it sounds. It sounds very tangy, and it's not at all how it really sounds if you look at the PowerPoint. But would any other council members like to add anything to their comments on this land? Councilmember Markley.
Yes, thank you. I have also walked this property a couple of times, and it is truly beautiful. There is not much that would even have to be done to it. The trail is very easy to maintain. There's a beautiful wooden bridge. It's just really lovely. And with all the new developments slated for Burnham Drive and the traffic issues we already have, I would love to not see another 40+ houses be built right there. So this is a gorgeous piece of property. And I think anybody that would like to tour it, we can arrange for people to come and walk the land. It's worth it, well worth it.
For the right price.
Yes. Right. Well, we actually can't pay over appraised value. We clarified that with our attorney. So, so thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Markley. We're very honored to have the opportunity to do this. And so I've seen a lot of cities where the parks that were established 50 years ago, and it just everything grew around it. So it's a great opportunity. So that's the conclusion of the presentation. So thank you. And then I have no mayor's report. Tony, do you have any city administrators report?
I have no report this evening, Your Honor.
Okay. Now we will have public comment on non-agenda items. which could include the park that the property that we just talked about. Were there any, so I'm opening up the public comment. Tony, were there any written comments that were emailed in?
Not for this portion of the meeting, but for some of the items on the agenda, yes.
Thank you. Now we'll open up to the people that are in the audience. Please step forward. This is on non-agenda items. You have 3 minutes, and please say your name and address.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tracy Burkowski, and I'm the Executive Director of Key Penn Parks, your neighboring park district over on the Key Peninsula. And earlier this year, we were asked to provide a letter of support for the acquisition of the 11.5 acres that's adjacent to the potential parcel that you just spoke about. And our Board of Park Commissioners readily agreed. As you know, that parcel has wonderful connections to the Puyallup tribe, prime salmon habitat, and forested sections. And those alone would be enough for the Key Peninsula Park District to offer our support. But there's one more element worth mentioning, and certainly is a connection to this other parcel which you're currently considering. And that is that Pierce County needs more regional trail connectors. And this property can not only support the habitat, but also be a connection to the Cushman Trail. And of course, the Cushman Trail is referenced in the Key Penn Parks Comprehensive Plan as a potential connector to trails located on the Key Peninsula. And so I wanted to take a step back, and even though you're looking at this new property, to congratulate you on your Conservation Futures grant for the 11.5 acres. And I look forward to additional congratulations when you actually secure that property. And on a personal note, not related to the professional reason that I'm here, this new land acquisition is incredibly, incredibly exciting with such beautiful, pristine habitat. And if there's anything that I can do to help support you that is not in conflict with my professional role, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'd like to know how I can volunteer for the tour. Thank you very much. And again, congratulations.
Thank you. Are there any other people from the audience? Yes.
Mayor, Council, Roger Henderson, 10679 Sundial Lane, Gig Harbor. I'm speaking tonight to voice my full support for the acquisition of this property. As the mayor noted, this is a one-time event, which I think is outstanding, and we need to grab it now. I'd like to thank the mayor and the council and all the other people that worked so hard to get this started. I know it's not done yet, but it still takes a lot of work just to get to this point in time. Acquisition of this property not only provides natural lands for the residents to enjoy now and for future generations, but also will serve as a positive step in fighting global climate change. I look forward to our newly elected mayor and city council members taking additional steps like this in the future to fight climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Okay, I will turn it to callers. I see Robert Anderson. You're up next. Go ahead and speak.
This is Bob Anderson, 5720 122nd Street in North in Gig Harbor. I am chairperson of the Sister City organization, and I wanted to update Mayor Kuhn and the Gig Harbor City Council briefly. 2 years ago, presidents of the 3 Rotary clubs in Gig Harbor approached Mayor Kuhn and the City Council about establishing a Sister City organization and creating Sister City relationships in Croatia and Norway, countries where our early European population originated. We noted that Rotary participation could help provide long-term stability to a Sister City effort. Mayor Kuhn and the council agreed, and we have moved forward. Currently, we have 7 members on the Sister City board, including 1 member from each Rotary club. I represent the Rotary Club of Gig Harbor North and serve as chairperson. Mark Hoppen represents Rotary Club of Gig Harbor. Dave Stave represents Rotary Club of Gig Harbor Midday. We also have 2 former city council members, Nick Markovich, a former Kiwanis Club president, and Ken Malich, who was also instrumental in our early discussions. Additional members are Natalie Wimberly, who is a member of the Peninsula School Board and had lived in Norway, and Lisa Christensen, who has ties to Buda, Norway, and also serves as Norwegian Honorary Consul for Alaska. We believe that by the end of this year, we will have created sister city relationships with Buda, Norway, and with the cities of Selcha and Milna in Croatia. Both Mayor Kuhn and Mayor-elect Tracy Markley have been involved with our actions the past 2 months. We urge Mayor Kuhn and City Council to endorse these 3 sister city relationships and to add 2 City Council members and the mayor to our sister city organization. We're also sponsoring a Norwegian Heritage Day on December 10th, and that day we will also dedicate peace poles at Swiftwater Elementary and Evergreen Elementary. We plan to follow up with additional Heritage Days in the coming year in order to celebrate our Native American heritage, as well as our heritage that exists in Gig Harbor and Key Peninsula. Thanks for your past support. We hope we can move on.
Thank you. Would there be any other callers that wish to speak? Please raise your hand. You can push *9 or *6. Okay, I will close the public comment on non-agenda items. And our first item of old business is public hearing, second reading and adoption of Ordinance 1474, our 2022 budget. Our report tonight is from our Finance Director, Dave Rodenbach.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. What we have here is the second reading and second public hearing for the 2022 budget. Total amount across all funds is $118,213,082. And we spoke to this amount at the last session, and there was a little confusion on my part. I'm sorry. We did send out a preliminary budget last year. In the past, we never had, so I was confused. What you have, I handed out tonight, changes from the electronic budget that I sent you a couple weeks ago. And the electronic budget was the understanding of what we had after the first reading. And I think we had most of your concerns that we felt were moved on and supported by the majority of council in that. And then the handout this evening is supposed to bridge from that to what we want to pass after this evening.
So it's on the back of our chart. Okay,
that's correct. And then the org chart, one mistake on it, the written in Parks Manager, which is under Community Development, is incorrect because we had already included that underneath the far left column, which starts with Finance Director. So if you would just disregard that one written in Parks Manager, I believe everything else is represented accurately within this org chart.
but the one thing, the park manager reports to the city administrator, so shouldn't there be a line?
It actually does. It goes.
Each, as you can see, each of these
Got it.
items, Finance Director, City Clerk, ITS Manager, Tourism Communications Director,
Got
they
it.
all report to the city administrator.
Okay,
And so that's pretty much all I have to present. If we'll open it up to public hearing questions and whatnot.
let's start with if there's questions on the org chart. We can get through this at stages. Okay, any questions on the other side?
And I'll just clarify the pages 94, 95, and 94 and 95, where it says remove certain goals and objectives. Those are items that were under park development that were included in the administration part of the budget because Parks Development has been moved over, but they were still in the Public Works section of the budget. They just needed to be removed. That's all. All those objectives and narratives or goals are still in the budget, just in a different section.
Okay, I'll open it up for general questions to our Finance Director from Council. And this is our second round. We had 2 study sessions. Okay, we can always go back to questions for them, but otherwise we'll We will go on for the public hearing. At this point, we will open up the public hearing to the general public on old business number 1. Tony, were there any items, any emails sent in or written?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Does anyone wish from the public here wish to comment on old business 1? Okay, I will open up to callers or people that are phoning in. If anyone wishes to raise their hand. Okay, I will close the public comment on old business 1, and council can have deliberating questions or action. Councilmember Markley.
I don't have the exact, we'll see. Is this where I make a motion to approve so we can then have further deliberation after that?
Sure.
Okay. So I move to approve. I want to get the right words here. I move to adopt the 2022 budget ordinance number 1474.
Second.
There's a second from Councilmember Eversole. We go to discussion, Councilmember. Okay. And then do you have other questions?
I had one amendment.
Go ahead.
On page 244, item number 5.
Okay, so just some of our books are a little different. So
Mhm. $244.
all the way in the back.
Yeah, and I'll try to pull up
Item
the
what?
name of the page. Item number 5.
Okay, I have, what's the heading? I have that on 243.
Yeah, me too.
I am looking on my.
Is it Civic Center HVAC?
No, it's well number 9. It's under the Water Division Capital Narrative of Goals. I'm sorry, not narrative goals. It's narrative of objectives.
Okay, it's under Water Division.
Yes, Water Division Capital Narrative of Objectives. Under Mayor and Department Supported Objectives, it's item number 5. I
Okay,
think it might be 249 on the electronic version, or maybe the paper version is 249.
Oh. Is it,
233.
is it
233.
230?
It's in the water capital,
Mhm.
if that helps.
My electronic copy says page 244. I don't know what you guys says.
Oh, paper is 233 for item number.
Okay, well, 9.
Number 9.
233?
Yep,
Okay,
233, well, number 9.
okay.
Okay.
I
does
apologize. I
everyone-
just have the electronic copy.
Yep, everyone there?
Everybody have that?
Okay,
Okay, so I moved to remove the $2 million in ARPA funds from the well number 9 development and water rights processing project.
I'll second that.
okay, can I ask your reasoning? Because,
Yes, so in my understanding, the ARPA funds were designed to go out into the community to help with COVID-19 relief. And as such, we already used part of the 2021 funds, which we amended at the last council meeting to give to Fish Food Bank, $500,000 to Fish Food Bank, as one of the organizations in our city that is providing a lot of people with COVID-19 relief in the way of food, gift cards, hotel stays, just numerous things that they help people with. And so I think that the new council in the new year should have a chance to sit down and talk about what we would like to use the remaining ARPA funds for. That will also be coming in July. The second half will come in July. There are multiple organizations in the community that are providing COVID relief. And also we have an opportunity to potentially do another grant program. I've looked at what a lot of other cities are doing and using these ARP funds for, and they are around affordable housing, grants to help small businesses, grants to help people with rent assistance. There's just a lot it can be used for. And given that we have enough money in the water fund, I think Dave would be able to confirm that for me. I think that there's just a lot of other ways we can utilize these funds in the community and have that money go out instead of staying within the city. And that's just my opinion there.
So your goal is to delay and figure out where next year to put the money.
Not delay much. I'm thinking first part of January or maybe at our council retreat, sit down and really just brainstorm about where this money could go.
Okay, as council decides this, since the water does benefit 75% of all citizens, I hope they keep in mind to make sure that if they give $2 million towards other causes, the goal would be to benefit the majority of the citizens, and 75% is a lot. So I just hope that they keep in mind that they find something that would do the equivalent of that, if not more. Council member, I think it was Benson was next.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll just make a quick note that I echo Councilmember Markley's sentiments. I think we need to just pause and take some time to look at what some of the other cities are doing, take some feedback from the community about what the needs are, not only to help folks that are struggling individually, but there's probably some initiatives that we can do in terms of economic development that would help, the community at large, some things that perhaps we can do with our police department in collaboration with them to assist them with some behavioral health and mental health support services. There's a whole number of things that we can look at, and this is a lot of money. It's an amazing opportunity for the city. So just taking a pause, getting all these great brains together, as well as the community's input, I think we can do some amazing things for Gig Harbor. So thank you, Councilmember Markley.
Councilmember Wook.
Yes, I'd like to ask maybe Jeff if he could give us some information on why we put the ARPA funds in this item.
And as yes, your amendment was to remove the 2 million, which then if you would also talk to how it gets replenished, the 2 million for that, or if it gets pushed, because that your thought was removing the 2 million, right? So we still have to find a way we have to hear from Jeff of how we're going to pay for that. But your amendment was to remove the 2 million.
It was to not pay $2 million towards this project and to put it out into the community. So however, we need to find a way to fund well number 9 through other means. That's what I would like to try to do.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Councilmember Wook, I believe your question was how when we first started developing the budget, did the ARPA funds get placed in this location for well
Yes.
number 9?
Yes.
I believe it was back in May, or maybe it was the beginning of June. Back then, City Administrator Larson had seen what options we could spend this ARPA funds for. And he started to look at capital projects, and he asked me for what capital projects would be able to be spent on this and how many residents they would benefit. So I gave him a series of capital projects, and this was one that he thought was appropriate to spend the money on. So this is something that he presented to council. I want to say it was June. But that's the only history I have on that. As far as the backfill, if we are not going to be spending ARPA funds on that, I will refer to Finance Director Rodenbach, but I believe we have sufficient water funds to pay for it.
Unfortunately or unfortunately, within the numbers portion of the budget, I left this 2 million in the general fund. I guess I didn't hear a clear enough voice to go for it. And it was like the Public Works Director Langhelm was saying, it happened back in May or June. And I really couldn't see anything, and it just slipped past me. So essentially, there's no effect. Currently in the budget, using city money for this project, we have an ending fund balance in that fund of almost $4.5 million. And so if we were to use ARPA money, we would have a $6.5 million ending fund balance in that fund. And so arguably it's needed or not needed. And then I would also add that I believe this project has been planned for with our rate consultant 6 years ago in our rate study and in the current one. And so it's already built into the rates to pay for this project.
Thank you.
Yes, Dan, I have 2 questions. We do have, Jeff, we do have a bunch of money. We have some major expenses coming down the pipeline that we have to save for in water. Is that correct?
We do, but most of the expenses are in wastewater, but we are going to be embarking on our utility rate study next year, first of next year, and we'll be able to look at what our water rates might need to be adjusted to pay for the capital plan in the water system. So it's a little too soon for me to be able to identify how we'll be sitting in terms of rates and where we'll be with total revenues.
Okay.
What is the timing for well 9?
We would like to get the design and permitting completed next year, possibly start construction of the well. And then this is, I know there's a topic at the December 14th Public Works Committee meeting on water rights in general, but we have sufficient water rights to drill another well and withdraw based on existing water rights. And then we will look at enhancing those water rights and getting additional water rights at some point in the future for well number 9.
Thank you.
So Dave, so you said that you forgot to put it on the ARP. So even though this page says ARP, are there other pages that it's coming out of the general fund? Is that what you're saying?
No, there's just sufficient funds within the water capital to pay for this.
Okay, but there's not other, if we amend this, there's not other pages that say it's not coming from this source.
No,
Okay,
it's just taking out the words.
okay.
Everything else will stay the same.
Yes, Daniel?
You basically had my question, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that should this motion proceed, do we need to make additional corrections to the ordinance budget appropriations as well? And it sounds like no.
Yeah, no effect.
Okay, that's what my question to Daniel. Okay, Councilmember Himes.
Yes, based on what I just heard, what I heard was we have sufficient funds in the water arena. And therefore, I think we should amend this motion. We said what we were taking out, but we didn't say how we're going to backfill it, okay? And I'd like to basically go on record as, yes, we should backfill it with the money from the water fund that is there, okay, to fund the $2 million. So I'd like to make that a motion and to amend the original motion, because it said this is what I take out, but we didn't solve the problem of what did we backfill with, okay? So if you want me to put that in the form of a motion,
So
I will.
it would, I think you would amend it so the money would not come out, we would not come out of ARP, but would come out of the water fund.
Exactly.
You're
The
right.
action remains the same. The funding is at a different source.
Sure.
That would be redundant because the way the budget is put together, the water fund has sufficient funds in it to pay for this project. Dave has already said that he had counted on that being the way it was going to be paid for. So it's already taken care of. All you're doing is saying policy-wise that the ARPA funds are not going to be used for a water project. They're going to be used for some other community purpose. So there's no need for any amending of the motion.
Okay.
Okay,
As long as it's funded.
okay, Councilmember Franich.
Thank you.
I think we'll call you back if there's things. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, this funding of this 2 million towards this water project meets the criteria of the ARP funds. I think it's more than appropriate to use this money, the $2 million, the way it's projected coming out of the ARP fund. There is, no matter whether it's a park, whether it's a water fund, an enterprise fund, there is no complete equitability in 100% of the citizens being able to benefit from any one particular project. Using this $2 million to pay for part of this well program will save the ratepayers money in the long run, because it's $2 million. It's not going to have to be come up with later on down the line. So I think it's more than equitable to use this. I think it is true that not everyone is hooked up to the city water system, but not everybody uses a lot of different projects that gets funded by the city. So yeah, I will not support the amendment.
Thank you, Councilmember Denson. Okay, all right. Is there anyone that from the public that wishes to vote I'm going to open up the public comment on the amendment. Does anyone wish to comment on this on the phone, Zoom, or in the public? I mean, obviously, we didn't have any public things. Yes.
So you technically have the final public hearing on the final budget tonight.
Mhm.
And so you should be opening that as the mechanism for public comment on the final budget. And so you could do the amendments, I guess, first, and then have something finalized for the public comment. Or you could do the public comment first in the public hearing.
Well, I did the public comment already once on this. I did.
That already.
Yep.
My
And no one
apologies.
commented.
I was just going to do amendments as they come. Thank you. Okay, I will close the public comment on this amendment and we will go to vote. All those in favor of this amendment, I'm going to do a roll call. All this in favor, say aye, starting with Councilmember Denson,
Aye.
Councilmember Rodenberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Wook,
Aye.
Councilmember Himes,
At $330 a head or a paying unit, I must agree with Councilmember Frenich. Nay.
Councilmember Franich,
No.
Councilmember Abersold,
Aye.
Councilmember Markley.
Aye.
Okay, this amendment moves forward. Are there other comments on the budget? Councilmember Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make an amendment as well on page 79 of your electronic version. And I'm not sure where it is in the paper version. It's, goodness, I can probably find it. It's under development regulation updates. So Director Knutson might be able to help us, although I don't know if she'll know where it is on the paper version either.
What's the heading? So,
Okay, let's see. It is, hold on. Community development, general fund, planning narrative of objectives. Planning narrative objectives,
okay,
Number
and I think
11.
it's 76. What's number?
number 11.
Page 76.
No, number 11, development regulation update,
Yes.
77. Okay, so
What number?
number 11 on 77, I already have notes on this. Stronger language where trees are cut, maybe.
Yep, that's in there. I have one additional sentence I'd like to propose for council's consideration.
Okay, and where would that sentence be in there?
I think we can just put the sentence at the very end after design manual period.
Uh-huh.
And it would read, staff to propose changes to commercial codes to base obligations on occupancy, comma, not seats, period.
I second that.
Okay,
Okay, and so basically, I just would like our professional staff's opinions for council to consider next year to try and get a more accurate handle on the number of individuals frequenting our businesses. When we base the obligations on seats, this determines things like ERUs, so our water and sewer funds. It determines the parking requirements. It determines the traffic impact fees the businesses pay. And I think we've seen in a couple of situations that perhaps a more accurate number is the number of people that are actually there, not the number of actual seats, because some of the businesses, don't have a model based on people sitting in a chair around a table. So
okay.
that's it. Thank you.
Though I don't get to vote, I would support that. I went to a brewery and there were no stools anywhere because they didn't want to put stools or chairs because then they would have only so many that they could sit there. Needless to say, there were a lot of people. There were, 10 times more than there were chairs or stools. So I think I'd like to hear from Katrina, if you would come forward, how, since a lot of our system codes are built around seats, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Denson and I did have a chance to discuss this, and I do think it has merit to looking at this different option. It's obviously different than what we do now. We do, as Councilmember Denson said, a lot of it is based on actual seats in which we've interpreted to be an actual chair or stool. And so that is utilized to calculate parking, ERUs, things of that nature. And this would be a different way to look at it. And we would be happy to analyze that and provide input back to council.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Knudsen? Okay, thank you. Council comments on this? Councilmember Wook.
This is a great idea. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation next year and doing some investigation, but I think it would clearly help our neighbors in districts and be a little bit more clear. I think I know exactly what's meant by seats and exactly what's meant by occupancy. So I'm totally in favor. I'm going to support this. Thank you so much for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Any other comments by council? Okay, we will still go through amendments. Anyone from the public or online listening or on their phones wish to comment on this item? Okay, we close the public comment on this amendment. All those, on amendments, we're just gonna go down the road. All those in favor say aye. Councilmember Wook. I'm sorry.
What are we voting on?
We're voting on the amendment. Sorry, I meant to say Denson. We're voting on the amendment to have number 11 say, and I'm going to let Councilmember Denson read it.
So a new sentence at the very end of number 11 saying staff to propose changes to commercial codes to base obligations on occupancy, comma, not seats, period.
Okay, and all in favor, Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Councilmember Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Franich.
Aye.
Councilmember Eversole.
Aye.
Councilmember Markley.
Aye.
Okay, that's our all motion amendment passed 7-0. That's our second amendment. Who seconded that? Lee, Councilmember Rodenberg. Okay. And then Josh, are you writing this down? Okay, you're right. Thank you. Do you have another question, Councilmember Denson?
I have one last amendment.
Okay.
Okay, so on page 238 of your electronic version, and it is under, hold on. Get up here. Sorry. Oh, park development. Park development 2022 proposed budget objectives.
Okay, just that's. What's number?
9. It's the Jerkovich Pier Advanced Mitigation Project.
Huh, I have number 9 being something else, sports complex.
Right
So,
above commercial
park-
fishing, home port pier design and permitting.
What page are you on, kid?
249, but that's
No, I'm on 3, Parks Development.
253.
Did you say Parks Development, Councilmember Denson?
No, that's what I thought. Let me make sure it didn't skip above.
Yeah, it's not on that one either.
Yeah, Crescent Creek Park and then Community Paddler Dock is number 5.
Crescent
Ansley
Creek
Net
Park
Shed
is number
Structural.
12 as far as.
This is the electronic version, so it may have changed.
Okay.
So it looks like Josh has put this up on the screen for you. It's page 237,
Item 9.
item 9, Jerkovich Pier Advanced Mitigation.
Just a sec. Thirty-seven is traffic benefits. This is great.
Oh, yeah.
Park development, the 2022 proposed budget objectives.
Yeah, so go on kind of towards the end of that.
It's gotta be way.
Is it?
Is it what is up on the screen there, Councilmember Denson?
Well, I can't read
I
that.
can't, we can't even read that. All right.
And I got brand new contacts. I'm sure it is because I trust Josh.
He's yeah, I'd like to find what page it's on though, because
Yeah,
this
that is it.
Yep, but it has to,
Yeah, I'm looking too.
Mayor, this is page 237 in the digital copy that Dave sent out. I'm not sure if that matches what you have printed.
No.
well, 237, I have traffic. So it's a little annoying that we all have different versions.
I think it's last. I don't know why I have 237.
So, and I was told that so,
Go ahead, Bob.
You know, actually, this wasn't, I don't even think this was in that.
It's
printed
not in
version.
it. I can't even find it.
It wasn't in there because the first version you gave us, the printed version didn't have the home port pier in it and it didn't have the mitigation. So that's why you're not finding it. Because I just found it on page 252, 251 and 252 is where it should be, but it's not here because that was before we added back in. the
Okay,
commercial fishing
I'm going to
port
take
pier.
a 5-minute recess because no, we can't even find it in our budget book. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess so we all can see the same thing.
Maybe Josh could.
The city council is back in session and we all have the right information in front of us. Number 9, Councilmember Denson was doing amendment. Go ahead, Councilmember Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. So on page 238, the Jerkvich Pier Advanced Mitigation Project, I would just like to strike the word likely where it says processes that will likely preserve. Strike that word and then add a sentence to the end that says city will move forward with demolition only on execution of a memorandum of understanding guaranteeing the advanced mitigation will be a credit for the future commercial fishing home port pier, period.
Second.
And I don't believe this reflects any change from the discussion we had at the last council meeting. The city, I understand, is still moving forward and working on this memorandum of understanding. And if they're able to get that guarantee, that's fabulous. We can demolish the pier and move forward. But as I heard from the last council meeting, and certainly what I believe is we want to make absolute sure that we've got that mitigation credit before we demolish that pier. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to, because I sent an email to council today regarding this. It said we spent hours last week with Department of Fish and Wildlife, our lobbyists, legislators, and Representative Kathleen Walters from the governor's office to put in a last pitch effort to have the Department of Fish and Wildlife get the MOU with us to us within the next week. Their legal team, it's with their legal team in the final steps of reviewing it. We have told the Department of Fish and Wildlife, if we do not have the MOU to show council at the same time as being able to permit to remove it, council will not okay it. We heard that last council meeting, and thus council won't even see it. So last council meeting, council actually had said that they would let us do our due diligence to see if we could get this MOU at the same time of the permitting. That's coming at this December 13th. Otherwise, you won't even see it. So I hope what you're wanting to do doesn't erase that 4-year attempt to make that happen.
No, I think it makes it very clear that if that doesn't happen and we can't get credit for the mitigation, then the demolition does not occur until we actually are ready to build the other part of the project, which is the other pier, the other dock. Is that my understanding of what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I
Councilmember?
wasn't trying to do an end run around this at all. I just wanted it in writing that we needed to be guaranteed that advanced mitigation, which is what I heard from council members last time. And, you know, I sincerely hope that we get that MOU guaranteeing that by the 13th. That would be great. But if we don't, unfortunately, we're just going to have to wait until we do have that guarantee.
Well, until we do the design for the commercial home port project, and then we include the demolition of the current pier at the same time in that whole permitting process. unfortunately, it means that we may end up spending more to do that demo than we would if we could do it now, but
It
that's-
might, or we may end up waiting till when we build the commercial fishing home port pier, and
Correct.
maybe we do it then, and then that will also, capitalize on the big barges being out there, but we can
Right,
make
and
that
if-
decision.
If we do wait till then, it's going to be 3 years of walking past, having a ribbon cutting, walking past a decrepit dock that actually falls into the bay between now and 3 years. And it'll cost us possibly 150 versus 50. I also, just so you know, there is no guarantee. The Fish and Wildlife has never given a complete guarantee, whether you're banking it or if you're not banking it. You can build a home port and have an old dock next to it, but they have told, and Jeff can correct me, they have never said that you have absolute guarantee ever.
Right, and if we don't get the guarantee, then what I'm hearing this motion is that we do not demo the old pier. We wait until we're doing the new pier, the new home port, and we roll that all together into one permit so we can get credit for the demo of the old pier or for mitigation.
Yes, yeah, unfortunately, I think that's what we have to do.
So it may mean 2 or 3 years if it's still sitting out there for people to see, but the concept is it's not going to be there when the new home port is built because it's going to be demoed as part of an overall project.
Right. It will be disappointing if this council kills the opportunity to protect the environment and the bay by leaving a decrepit dock that's going to fall and has been falling into the bay for 2 to 3 more years because they don't absolutely get 100% banking. So that will be disappointing when we have the ribbon cutting and the new kayak. It would also put in jeopardy a hazard because everyone's now using it right next to it. And it's not good for the environment. So I just want to make that point as we stare at it possibly for several years. Councilmember Markley.
Yes, do we have any figures yet as to if we lost this mitigation, demoed it now, and it did not go towards the home port, what additional expense would be added to the home port project if we demoed it early?
Well, the fishermen always said, we come on forward. The fishermen always said, they want the dock so bad. They've always said publicly that we'll find you mitigation. They've said that all the way back to 4 years. Go ahead.
Okay, let's say they can't find mitigation. Do we have any costs estimate?
No, we do not have any estimate for how much additional mitigation we'd have to find elsewhere to backfill for the loss mitigation in the Jerkovich Pier.
Okay, and then do we also know, is there a cost difference if we demoed it now versus waiting and demoing it as part of the home port project? If it stands and it doesn't keep falling and we can still use it and it's still good, is it going to cost 100,000 more or would it cost?
I can't say for sure if the idea is we're trying to take advantage of having a contractor already on site. And I think your question is it going to cost more if we take advantage of the contractor that might be on site for community paddlers dock versus might be on site for the future commercial fishing home port? I can't say for sure. It's likely, the intent is to try and benefit from reducing or eliminating mobilization, demobilization costs. So if that's all we're doing, then no, there'd be no net benefit cost wise. But if construction always costs more in the future, but that's an unknown.
Okay.
Hey, Councilmember Wu.
If there is no mitigation, what does this mean for the building of the home port?
There will be mitigation. We'll just have to go find it somewhere else.
And we don't know.
We don't know how much it would cost to find it somewhere else.
Right.
Councilmember Himes.
Yes, at this time, does this affect the budget? At this moment?
It does not.
So it's
good.
All this does is clarify the policy language about the project, but well, it doesn't change the appropriation. What it does do is change the possibility of us spending it next year.
Okay, but we don't know what that is.
Correct.
And we could react to it when we do know what it is.
That's correct.
I'm going to have a follow-up motion here called, I think it's time to suspend further consideration of amendments to the budget. We have had 2 months of meetings study sessions to have exactly these kinds of discussions, and to be having them tonight at a full council meeting, I think is a poor use of our time, to be quite honest. So with that, I'd like to offer that motion to suspend further consideration of amendments to the budget and go back to the main motion.
Is there a second?
Is your intention to finish this particular item and then this, you still want this? Is it your intention to let this item be discussed in the mitigation item?
Yeah, we can finish discussion on that, but immediately after that,
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to vote on that.
Based on that, I'll second that.
Point of order. This is a completely new item. It's not connected with the amendment or the item on the floor. So I don't know how this could be an amendment to an amendment.
Yeah, there's an amendment on the floor that should be finished.
And he said it would be, so.
Which is the amendment that Councilmember Denson offered.
So you said the amendment on the floor should be finished before we vote on Councilmember Himes?
Correct, and we can talk about that when we're, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we're still talking about this and then we'll go to that right after. Councilmember Franich.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a really good idea to let staff try and get to the bottom of this, but I think it would make no sense to demolish that dock without having the ability to bank that mitigation. That's just going to get more expensive in the future. Even though project costs may rise, I believe mitigation costs will rise substantially more than what the difference would be that to demolish the dock at the time the home port is being constructed. So yeah, I think this is a very good idea to not burn that mitigation up for no good reason. But I am hopeful that Department of Natural Resources or Fish and Wildlife will come to the sense that it's just amazing that they will not sign an MOU. We'd be getting this these creosote pilings out of the water faster, which would be a benefit that you think they would want to achieve. So, and I think it'd be good to achieve it early, but let's just hope they'll come to their senses.
Okay, Councilmember, let's see, there's light, Councilmember Rodenberg.
I agree that we should let staff do everything they can in the next couple of weeks, but we should also not go forward without the memorandum of understanding. So I do agree with Councilman Franich, Councilman Denson, Councilman Wook.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public? I'm going to open up the public comment on this amendment. Anyone from the public here or on the phone or at the computer that wish to comment on this? Okay, I will close the public comment. And Councilmember Rodenberg, you're done. Okay. All those in favor, and we're going to go down the road. Say aye. Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Wu.
Aye.
Councilmember Himes.
Aye.
Councilmember Franich.
Aye.
Councilmember Eversold.
Aye.
Councilmember Markley. Okay. Motion passes 7-0. One last question on this. So Jeff, because I've spent so much time on this and now I'm hearing this from council, and I might be wrong, but I'm hearing from council that if they don't say, if we don't have an MOU that basically says you absolutely get credit for this, which they're not going to do, I think it seems like this council is not even going to accept an MOU the way that, because it seems like they want reassurances that from working with them, with you, they're not going to give us. So do you feel that Gwen is going to, the MOU that's with them, that's at the legal team, I'm sure it doesn't say you're guaranteed banking. What do you think it's going to say on the MOU?
I'd have to wait to see. I don't think they can 100% guarantee that all of the mitigation could be used. I think that they can say that they're going to put a time frame on it that says that within this amount of time that that they will try and use the mitigation based on the criteria that they have in place. There's a lot of gray area in there. And so I can't say it's 100% though.
Okay.
But the good thing is that, like we said previously, the council, before awarding a contract, wants to see the MOU, and that's scheduled both the MOU, which I understand it's on track for the 13th, and the bid opening for the demolition of the pier is also on track for December 13th.
Okay, well, we'll keep pursuing it, and I guess if it's not as good as council wants, it would tell them that we've worked so hard on this that when we do want it, they know it's important to us. So they'll remember all that. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hymes, back to you.
Now I will make my motion, and I move that we suspend further consideration of amendments to the 2022 budget, which is still on the table.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, this is the 2022 budget.
Mayor,
I don't think
Yes,
there's,
I'm sorry.
I apologize to interrupt. So that's a motion to call the question. That's non-debatable and requires a 2/3 vote to pass.
Okay, and clarity, why? Just so I know.
Robert's rules.
Oh, Robert's rules, okay.
I mean,
To-
it's
To
it's
stop
to
any
cut- it's
amendments?
to cut off debate and to call the question on the underlying motion,
Oh, yep,
which is non-debatable and requires 2/3
right.
vote.
It's to call the question, right.
Correct.
Okay, yep. I'm sorry, Councilmember Rodenberg, proceed.
No, it's actually not debatable. You just take a vote right now.
Oh,
Just vote.
that's right, okay. All those, we ever haven't had that on stopping amendments, especially on a budget. So all those in favor of stopping debate and proceed to passing the budget, say aye. Councilmember Denson,
No.
Councilmember Rodenberg,
no,
Councilmember Wu,
No.
Councilmember Hymes,
Aye.
Councilmember Franich,
Yes.
Councilmember Eversole,
Nay.
Councilmember Markley.
No.
Okay, motion fails 2-5. And we will go on to the next council amendment. I mean, that's what we're here to do. So let's get this going. Who's gonna, since you want to keep going on the council bill, who's gonna make the next amendment? Because that's what you've asked for. You've asked us,
Just don't want to stop discussion, but if there's no new amendments, we can move forward.
that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for someone.
There's a motion on the floor.
So if there are no further amendments or discussion,
Okay,
I'll-
there's
I'll
a,
vote on
there's
the
a
main
motion to approve the budget. All those in favor of approving the budget with amendments we have said, say aye. Councilmember Denson,
Aye.
Councilmember Rodenberg,
aye,
Councilmember Wu,
Aye.
Councilmember Hymes,
Aye.
Councilmember Franich,
Yes.
Councilmember Eversole,
Aye.
Councilmember Markley.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 7-0. Same thing that would have happened if we had accepted Councilmember Hymes' amendment, it would have been the same thing.
That's a great hint.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, our first item on new business with the amending the agenda will be approval of hire parks manager above midpoint of salary range. We pulled that from consent agenda and we said we would talk about it at the beginning of new business. And since Councilman Rodenberg pulled that, go ahead.
yes, I pulled this out of the consent agenda because I couldn't vote in the positive for it, and I didn't want to have that affect the consent agenda. I have nothing against Matthew. In fact, after I did my research on my own, it tells me he'll be a very good parks manager. And in fact, if we approve this mid-range salary, he'll be a good one. I have no doubt that the salary will be approved tonight because I know that some council members had the opportunity by invitation to meet him. And I know that the city administrator has had private meetings with most, if not all, council members except me. to convince them to support this salary that we're voting on tonight. But I'm confused as why the council even needs to approve this over mid-range, since it seems a foregone conclusion. The HR director and the mayor have already said that we have a new parks manager. So I'm confused about the process. Administration negotiated the salary. Administration made an offer to the candidate. The candidate accepted the offer. Our HR director announced to all staff, please welcome our parks manager. And the mayor in its week blog comment says we have a new parks manager. So if this is a done deal, why do you come to council to approve this? Why now? Why is all this get done when in fact by the ordinance, I believe, we should have approved this before the offer was made. So I'm just curious about the process.
I believe Tony will answer this. I think anything above midpoint actually has to go to council by law. I believe that. Is that correct, Tony?
According to our personnel manual, yes. But however, here's how I'll answer that question. The offer is still contingent on council approving the salary above midpoint, and the candidate knows that. And maybe it was premature to start announcing that we have a new parks manager and here's who it is. I agree with you on that. We probably should have waited until after the council meeting where the request was approved or not approved. But I did put this gentleman's name in the agenda item so council would know who he is. And obviously you've then used that opportunity to do a little bit of research. And I apologize that you and I did not talk about it. I think I have spoken to just about every council member during my normal biweekly meetings, and you and I had not met since this was put together. So I apologize for that.
It's probably been about 14 days since this was put together. I'm available any work day.
And
So I have a question about, is this position going to belong to the union?
Yes.
Okay. And also it brings up the mayor in his 9-page comments that are in this budget. He warns people about being aware of escalating cost of wages. So we've wanted a parks manager since July of 2020. And we've made the choice to take it off the posting, on the posting, but the fact is we haven't gotten it. So when you go to get a candidate, you have a job description, you have the qualifications which are needed, and you have a pay range in which the candidate is supposed to fit. So in all that time, since July 2020, the best we could do is to poach a parks manager from some other municipality, pay him more to do the job. I think it's going to be wonderful, like I said, but I think that's a failure on HR's part and possibly administration for not having this done in a timely manner. I know that some candidates that went through the process.
Please refrain from belittling staff, which you just did, because this does not fall on all HR. We have the same problem with police, so I would appreciate you refrain from belittling staff, as I just heard you do.
I have no further comments.
If there's nothing else from any of the council member, a motion to approve the request would be in order.
Yes. Do I have Councilmember Wook?
I move to authorize the interim city administrator to hire Matthew Keough as a parks manager at a starting hourly wage of $50.87, $8,818.60 monthly.
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay. Six approve, 1 abstain. We will go on for our first item of new business, which is public hearing, presentation of draft ADA self-elevation and transition planning program Report tonight is from our city engineer, Trent Ward.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and council members. Over the past 3 months, Public Works engineering staff, along with the assistance of the city's consultant Transportation Solutions Incorporated, have been developing the city's ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. Tonight, Transportation Solutions will give a short PowerPoint presentation describing the federal code requirements for why the city must adopt such a plan and provide an outline of the elements and objectives within the plan. After this presentation, we'll be happy to address any comments and questions you may have. So at this time, I'd like to welcome and hand off to Jennifer Sailman and Kirk Harris of Transportation Solutions to begin our presentation.
Hi there.
Hey.
I'm sharing my screen and please confirm you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can hear and see you. Thank you for coming.
Great, glad to be here. And my colleague Kirk Harris is also with us tonight to address any questions. My presentation is 10 minutes, and so I will get to it. First, a quick description of what an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan is. This is a document that is a tool to help jurisdictions transition towards compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the plan is based on the guidance from the Department of Justice and must include 4 things. At a minimum, the plan must identify physical and communicative barriers that limit accessibility. And this is across the city's programs, but also its services and facilities and its activities as well. The plan must also describe the methods to make all of these facilities and programs, etc., accessible. It must provide a schedule for removing of barriers to provide better access and therefore become compliant with the ADA. And it also needs to identify those public officials responsible to ensure the plan is implemented and the barriers are in fact removed. An ADA transition plan is federally mandated as part of the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act. And this includes the self-evaluation activities to inventory your facilities for compliance, as well as modifying existing facilities to be ADA compliant. Also, WashDOT requires certification agencies with 50 or more employees to have an ADA transition plan to be eligible for federal highway funding. And the city of Gig Harbor is such a certified acceptance agency. This year, we have focused on the first phase of an ADA transition plan. We've focused our efforts on the public right-of-way, and we've looked specifically at the city's curb ramps, and we've done the full suite of activities looking at evaluating the facilities, prioritizing the barriers, and putting together a plan of a cost and schedule to remove those curb ramp barriers. We also did have some review of existing data related to pedestrian crossings. This phase also did some required administrative items, including designating an ADA 504 coordinator and also establishing an ADA grievance procedure, posting a public notice under the ADA that all agencies must do, establishing an accessible pedestrian signal policy to guide the compliance upgrades and ADA compliance of new APS facilities, and then designating an official responsible for the plan. The plan looks at the curb ramp barriers in the most detail and provides a prioritization scheme based upon a few different factors. The first is the level of ADA compliance, We do look at compliance as a continuum of more or less compliant. It's very easy for a curb ramp to be technically non-compliant, a fraction of a percentage too steep, etc. And so we look at those barriers that are more severe than others. We also look at proximity. The city already has planned transportation projects, and so we look to see what ramps could be captured and therefore removed for those projects. We also look at prioritizing high use areas, including pedestrian trails and transit routes, especially within Gig Harbor's tourist attraction character. And we also look at the city's comprehensive plan that's identified centers of local importance, again, where there is high activity. Barriers also are removed through the annual pavement maintenance and repair program that requires curb ramp upgrades be integrated into these projects. So there are multiple ways where the city can be efficient in removing barriers in its currently scheduled activities. Barrier removal, to implement it can be an expensive endeavor. And so we have provided cost estimates, and we have scheduled the removal of our existing 416 curb ramp barriers into 6-year and 25-year horizons. So extending out through your TIP period to 2027 and 2047 for planning purposes. In order to achieve this, we look at existing and potential funding sources as well. The project schedule has shown activity from August to the present. After our August kickoff, we completed our self-evaluation activities in September. And in October, we launched an ADA transition plan page that includes online surveys for which we've already received a total of 27 responses from the public to help prioritize barriers and provide the public with an opportunity to comment in an accessible way. In October and through to November, we worked on prioritizing barriers and developing the financial implementation plan to remove them. On November 9th, we presented to the Public Works Committee and reviewed the draft plan, and also made the draft plan again available to the public via the project webpage for additional public comment. We are seeking the council's comments this evening on the draft plan and any further public comment. And we'd also like to encourage any further comment through our period for public comment that will end on the 30th. So our surveys will remain open for submitting comments. And then we hope and anticipate adoption of the plan in mid-December. For costs for barrier removal, when we're looking at curb ramps, we have estimated costs in $2021, and we include a comprehensive cost estimate to look at the surveying, design, construction, management, contingency, to get an estimate that is about $15,000 per curb ramp. In order to remove the curb ramps with this cost estimate in mind, we have looked at a total estimated program cost of $6.2 million. In 2022, the city has already dedicated $500,000 for upgrading curb ramps through the 2022 pavement maintenance and repair program. And then if we look to the current TIP or 2022-2027 TIP and ongoing pavement maintenance and repair, we estimate another $1 million towards reducing this barrier amount. And for the 25-year horizon, if you average about 17 ramps or 250,000 per year, we could address the remainder within the 25-year horizon. Public engagement is a key component of the AD transition plan. And so our online surveys are active through November 30th. And we are providing multiple public comment opportunities, this being the final council opportunity. And in terms of outstanding phase 1 tasks, my role will be to incorporate public comment, any surveys submitted after October 31st. The draft plan includes those through October 31st. Any additional comments I'll be adding to the final plans documentation. So this is phase 1, and so there are future phases to evaluate and remove other barriers. There are other public right-of-way facilities that can present accessibility barriers, including sidewalks, the driveway interface with sidewalks, ensuring that accessible pedestrian signals have all of the accessible features included or required to be compliant, and then also accessible parking. City facilities also need to be evaluated and barriers removed in city buildings, city parks and trails, and then the programmatic elements of the city's services and activities and other programs. So we invite you to fill out our online survey as well, as you are members of the Gig Harbor community, and to encourage those you know to submit feedback through these surveys. There's an option for members of the public to even upload photos of barriers they experience, so we can have some targeted information about where people experience barriers. And I am happy to help address questions and can move to any slide you'd like. So thank you for your attention.
Yeah, so a curb barrier, so not a, so you're saying it's $50,000 to make a slanted curve on a sidewalk, a curb barrier? So 15, okay, I thought, okay, I heard 50. So thank you.
Sorry if I misspoke.
That's right, I was gonna say, I know it's not that much, 50.
And this is an average cost. In the plan, I show a range for planning purposes, a low cost being 12,500, a more expensive situation being 17,500. It's variable, but this was our planning level cost estimate.
Thank you. Councilmember Wu.
Yes, so I believe we discussed in our Public Works Committee that there are 416 curbs, and we have 31 years to correct all these curbs to make them ADA accessible. And so at some point in time, I guess we'll have to decide how many to do a year. Or have we given any thoughts to that at all?
If I may provide a correction, Kirk made the observation that I had incorrectly added the 6 and 25 years for 31 years. And the averaging for 17 ramps a year is for 25 years to address the need. So it would be, this current implementation plan would be accomplished in 25 years, not 31.
Thank you so much. I have spoken to Heron's Key, which is a senior community in our senior home in our community, and to the senior sitters as well. And they have been working on getting some more surveys completed, and it'll be interesting. I think it's a good thing that they have an input as well as our regular citizens. So thanks for working on this, and thank you for the survey and making this so easy to do. There are 6 questions. And it's a very easy, short survey. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Councilmember Francis.
Thank you. So on page 5, you were talking about when you were analyzing them that you kind of classified them out as some being more serious than others. Is there a severity list
The plan includes includes maps and a Excel spreadsheet that groups the 416 curb ramp barriers into priority levels based on their proximity to these areas. And then within that, it breaks down these priority groups. So within planned transportation projects, it breaks it down further to see, okay, where are there missing ramps? Because that's a more severe barrier than a ramp that exists but has a minor non-compliance issue. So we do prioritize them within 3 large groups: planned transportation projects, the pedestrian trails, and then the coleys. And within these 3 groups, you can then see their severity to see how many are missing, how many are, we would say, older non-compliant ramps that they would have more severity issues. We have newer ramps that have less of an issue because they were built recently but don't meet today's current standards. And then so there's attention given to the fact that ramps have been built over time and the requirements for accessibility have also been changing over time as well.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for that. And I would just like to point out that this is just one element of the whole transition plan. And I'm hoping that next year with the new council and new mayor, that parking, which was referred to on page 10, will make its way towards the top and not get strung out over the 25-year period that this is all going to happen in. So the other thing that I would like to mention is, you know, there are so many elements to the ADA. And when this building was built, just as an example, there wasn't even a push button for an automatic door opener on the front door of this building. And being disabled myself, using a wheelchair, you know, it's kind of big bureaucracy that you have an ADA Act that would allow the city, as long as there's so many pounds of it was based on how many foot-pounds it takes to pull the door open. But if you're more severely disabled and you don't have good use of your hands, you can't pull the door. So, well, I can appreciate wanting to get to some of these things that should be taken care of. It's it really needs to be looked at with some common sense. And somehow I think that a lot of times the Department of Justice loses sight of common sense, and then they start ramming these regulations down our throat. I think everybody wants to make it as convenient for the disabled, whether it's physically disabled or a blindness or what have you, to be able to navigate. But some common sense needs to be used when it comes to this. Thank you.
Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify something. So excuse me, Jennifer, for interrupting, but I want to clarify something. Councilmember Franich, you said that the other items that are listed on the screen in this committee involved in future phases, we haven't yet determined how much time or money it's going to cost to do that. The dollar amount and the year that you see up there is just for curb ramp barriers. So all the rest of the items listed up here are going to take more time and cost more money, and we haven't, that's not included in this. So I just want to clarify.
No, I completely understand that. And that's why I said that I know that we're looking at the 421 ramps and that she did the math and over the 25 years, but I was just mentioning for the council that will be here and the new council that's coming on board, that I think it would be a benefit to everybody that's disabled to try and move that parking up somewhere a little bit further on the list. And I'm hoping, Jeff, that when we were having a discussion with the gentleman from Camas, their cost per ramp was about $5,000. So I'm hoping maybe we could look at their resources. And if that's not an option, I think it would be wise for the new council and administration, since this is going to be an ongoing expense over many years, that it might be smarter to hire another public works employee that would concentrate specifically on this and become very adept at putting these, identifying the problem, designing it, and having it done rather than paying consultant staff to come out and assess each one of these projects.
Sure, because, and I appreciate that, because the $15,000 amount that you saw was for consultant design, consultant review, and public works construction. And the amount that you were referring to, either from the gentleman that we had spoken to earlier for $5,000, was in-house construction costs only.
Right. Well, as we know, this is going to be an ongoing expense for many years. So I think it'd be prudent use of these projects.
Councilmember Hines.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that this is a self-evaluation based plan. And is there a government agency, either county, state, or federal, that we have to report to? Well, one, do we have to have the plan approved by them, or we just offer it up and say, this is what we're doing? One, and then two, does anybody follow up in any of those agencies to see how we're doing?
There is no agency that is required to approve the plan that we put together. There's a lot of discretion, a lot of latitude on what type of plan an agency wants to adopt locally. And if you look around the region, you can go to many, many cities and counties in the state and look at them, and they all look different, but they all achieve the same end goal: to remove accessibility barriers. Now, as far as reporting goes, there isn't a strict reporting element to the plan, except that if the Department of Justice, based on a complaint or just passing through town, wants to see what progress we're making, or wants to see our plan, it is possible that the plan would be solicited by the Federal Department of Justice. Another factor is the DOT, who administers federal funding for projects that the city's benefited from many, many times, and we hope to in the future. They have drawn a line in the sand and said that beginning next year, 2022, in order to be eligible for federal project funding, we must have an adopted transition plan.
Great, thank you.
Let's see, Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yes, this question for Trent. 416 ramps have to be brought up to standard. And I saw in the cost, there's $1,500 design and engineering per ramp. Do we have to design and engineer 416? Isn't there maybe like 10 kinds of ramps and we do the engineering 10 times and apply it to the further ramps, or does each ramp have to have their own design?
Well, these are worst case costs. At least that's what we're hoping. And some ramps are a lot simpler to design than others. As you all know, our city has some flat roads, but we also have a whole bunch of roads that have a lot of grade to them. And those are the more challenging ones. So it just depends on the complexity of the geography that we're trying to build the ramp within.
Well, that's a good question. I would hope that, as Councilmember Rodenberg said, there's going to be a lot that are going to be really close to the same, and either it is the same or some of them, or you can tweak it just a little bit. So I hope those comments that Councilmember Rodenberg said are relayed to everyone involved.
Thank you.
Councilmember Abersold.
Yeah, I guess maybe this is a question for either Jeff or Trent, but my understanding, or at least I'm thinking, is that when we designed these curbs long ago, they were designed to state regulations and all the regulations that lawfully we have to do, correct?
That is generally correct, although some of the standards were not really closely adhered to. And over time, there's been additional requirements added to the old way that we built ramps.
Okay. And I just have a real problem. I guess maybe it's not with us, but I don't like the state tying highway funds into this when we followed their rules. And then they say, well, the rules have to change. And if you don't change with them, you just don't get your money. I think that's heavy-handed and kind of totalitarian. And I think it's a bad look from the state. So I think whoever made those decisions, I hope they hear me and I hope they realize that it's not a real good look. So thank you.
Well, and if I may respond a little bit to that, the state's under the same obligations of this federal mandate. And again, it goes back to 1990. And quite honestly, there's been a lot of grace given to jurisdictions like ourselves, allowing us this long to put a plan together and to bring into compliance. So we all understand this is a lot of work, it's a lot of money, but this is a regulation that's been in effect for over 30 years.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to open up for public comment. Were there any comments that were turned in, Tony?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Does anyone from the public or online or in a Zoom or on phone or listening would like to comment on this? Okay, I will close the public comment. Are there any other clarifying questions from council? And if not, I'd like to have a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. This is, yeah. This is first reading, so this will move to second reading. With that, we will go to our second item. Thank you very much. I appreciate both very much on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So new business 2 is first reading of ordinance 1476, codifying the municipal court. Our report tonight is our interim city clerk, Josh Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. This is the first reading of ordinance 1476. This is largely a housekeeping ordinance. A bit of history: back in 1984, the City Council passed ordinance 447 that established the Gig Harbor Municipal Court. But for some reason that the court was never codified. It was just adopted by ordinance. And what this ordinance 1476 does is brings the municipal court into the municipal code. There's a few reasons for doing that. The first one is it makes it a lot easier for staff and administration to track the changes we've made to the court over the years. You'll see on the agenda bill that there are, I believe, 4 or 5 amending ordinances to ordinance 447. And it's become a real difficult task for staff to keep track of which parts have been amended and where they've been amended at. And moving the whole thing to the municipal code will give us a good record of where the court stands currently and when changes were made going forward. The 2 key provisions that we want to address with this code change are there's 2 factors that council is responsible for updating on the court. The first one is the salary of the municipal court judge and the pro tem judges. I believe a week ago, or the last council meeting, we adopted the new salary for the new judge who we met tonight. And that will stay in place. It will just become part of this ordinance, this municipal code chapter. So we will frequently, or every 4 years, or whenever we appoint a new judge, we will potentially create a new salary. And this was a good way to keep track of how we change that and when we change that. The other thing that council is required to do is council is given the authority to establish the time of the meeting of the court. And what we've done with this code that's new is we've delegated that responsibility to the judge to set the regular and special times for their court sessions. We've never really amended this. The very first ordinance, ordinance 447, sets the date and time, I believe, for Thursdays. And you may know that we actually do court now on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And the court has never actually come back to council and asked for a new time, even though that's probably something we should have done. So this ordinance codifying the court just delegates that the ability to set those times to the judge. so that we don't have to come back to council every time we need to make an administrative change to the schedule. Other than that, the rest of the text for this new code chapter is pretty much taken exactly from that ordinance 447, so we're not really changing anything else. So if there's any questions about any of this, I am here to answer them.
Okay, I don't see any lights up, so we will move to public comment. We will open up the public comment on this item. Tony, were there any comments turned in?
No, there was not, Your Honor.
Okay, does anyone from the public or online or in a Zoom, from the Zoom wish to comment on this? Please raise your hand or come forward. Okay, I will close the public comment. And is there any more discussion before we move to second reading? Okay, we will move this to second reading. New business 3 is resolution 1224, adopting LTAC recommendations. Our report tonight is from our Tourism Communication Director, Laura Pettit.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
We can hear you. Good evening.
Thank you. So our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee met on October 12th and 18th to review all of the applications for the use of 2022 lodging tax funds. Recommendations are as follows. The recipients I'll list first, their purpose and expenditure after. The Gig Harbor Senior Center for their Shamrock and Run, a recommended expenditure of $500. For the PTSD Foundation, Race for a Soldier, Pull for a Soldier, and the Prayer Breakfast at $15,000. The Greater Gig Harbor Foundation for their cider swig at $5,000. The Gig Harbor Boat Shop for operations for $2,000. The Crescent Valley Lavender Farm for 2022 summer operations at $5,000. The Greater Gig Harbor Foundation for the Rattle Them Bones Halloween bike ride at $1,000. Dunnigan Brewing for their Celtic Music Festival at $6,000. The Harbor History Museum for their operations and exhibits at $11,500. The Gig Harbor Sportsman's Club for their seafood shoot at $4,500. Rotary North for the Gallop and Gertie Half Marathon at $8,000. Harbor Wild Watch for Visitor Center operations at $11,000. Harbor Wild Watch again for their Chum Fest event at $2,500. The Gig Harbor Art Center for their Sister Cities initiative at $3,000. The Gig Harbor Canoe and Kayak Racing Team for Paddlers Cup at $5,000. The Gig Harbor Canoe and Kayak Racing Team for their Narrows Challenge event at $5,000. The Peninsula Art League for their Open Juried Art Show at $3,000. Peninsula Art League for their Summer Arts Festival at $4,000. The Gig Harbor Downtown Waterfront Alliance for their Farmers Market at $17,000, and the Gig Harbor Film Festival for their 2022 festival at $16,000. That's a total external grants of $125,000. We also presented the city's operational event and destination marketing expenses at $490,000, which brings our total recommended expenditures to $615,000. The beginning fund balance is $919,527, with estimated 2022 revenues of $396,000 and an estimated ending balance for 2022 of $7,527. As mentioned, this expenditure for the city includes a potential partnership fund receipt of $115,000. So that is a $375,000 spend by the city for all of our external marketing, including the 50% salary and benefits for 2 department employees and all of the city's marketing. The remaining 50% of our salary, both my salary and our assistant salary, is covered by the general fund as shown in the 2022 budget. Those partnership funds, as mentioned, include things like the trolley. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, there's no questions that I can see, clarifying questions, so I will open it up for public comment. Tony, were there any comments turned in for this topic?
Yes, there was, Your Honor. I have one.
Okay, proceed.
So this is from Eunice Kim Setianwan. She's the Gig Harbor Port Orchard AAPI Community Group. She's the co-admin. Hello, Mayor and Council. This email is for public comment regarding the LTAC grant at tonight's council meeting. Please consider taking a moment to reconsider reviewing the Asia Pacific Cultural Center's application. The Gig Harbor Harvest Moon Festival this past September was a greatly anticipated event in the community. Sadly, the event was rained out and there was not enough time to coordinate alternative tents to host the event, but many locals and even visitors from neighboring cities still came out to support the traditional rice cake tasting experience and receive informational booklets. The event was supported at the city, district, and state levels. Marilyn Strickland, Derek Kilmer, Mayor Kuhn, incoming Mayor Markley, city council members, police chiefs, businesses, Peninsula School District, and even received media attention, a 4-page spread in the September 2021 issue of the 253 magazine. As a Gig Harbor community member who identifies as AAPI, I have shared many conversations with others in our community who felt proud and seen through this event. Many community members showed interest in learning through authentic immersion, education, and arts. The Peninsula School District's EDI can help spread the word of the event with excitement at the opportunity to embrace such a unique opportunity for cultural immersion locally. Cultural immersion and education are positive experiences for everyone and a great way to bridge communities. The Asian Pacific Cultural Center is committed to its mission to bridge communities and generations through art, culture, education, and business. Any amount of support from the LTAG grant would be appreciated. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment either online, on a phone, or in the audience? Okay, I will close the public comment. And is there a motion or any clarifying questions? Councilmember Franich.
Yeah, Laura, how much did the farmer's market get last year?
I believe it was, gosh, I believe it was slightly more. I believe it was closer to their 20,000 maximum.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wu.
Yes, I move to approve resolution 1224.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Any further deliberation? Okay.
I have an amendment. So
Okay.
I move to direct staff to let me start over. I move to direct staff to prepare a revised resolution for council to consider at the January 10th City Council meeting after a 45-day consulting period with the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. The revised resolution will contain the removal of a $5,000 grant to Crescent Valley Farm and an addition of a $5,000 grant to the Asian Pacific Cultural Center Korean Moon Festival.
The 5,000 for the, I heard the first one. What was the second one?
$5,000 removal of a $5,000 grant from Crescent Valley Farm and an addition of a $5,000 grant to the Asian Pacific Cultural Center Korean Moon Festival.
Second.
Okay. One thing I would,
Explain.
I would prefer council, and it's up to, so are you still wanting to pass this with those, pass the rest of this so that people can be ready to spend? Are you trying to delay this because they're going to want to know how to spend all these events? Most of these groups were listening, so they're going to want to plan their events. And if you delay all of them until January or February, then they don't know if they're going to possibly do their events.
That's an excellent point, Mayor.
But if
Can
you
we
wanted
get some
to
guidance
swap
from?
these two,
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy not to delay the rest if
Yeah.
that's possible.
sure. And then you're not affecting everyone when you're not wanting to
Certainly not.
do that, because that's,
And we do have to wait because if we pass this, it goes to LTAC for consideration, then it comes back to us and then we actually vote to make the switch.
but that only has to be for that one swap. It doesn't have to affect everyone else.
Correct. I would love to hear from the city clerk, Josh Stecker. Does that work, Mr. Stecker?
Yeah, I think you can do that. Essentially what your motion would be then is that you're just removing the funding for the Crescent Valley Lavender Farm and then adopting the resolution as it stands. And then it'd be a second motion to request that LTAC review the application for, was it the Asian Pacific Islander Group, and have them re-review that.
Yes, I would like to do that.
Okay, one thing I think it's good to ask, there were reasons that we did not fund that.
Well, I listened to the whole 3 hours, so I heard the reasons and I'd love to give my comments.
Okay, because they did say if we don't get all the 20, then we can't do it.
Yes.
So let's
Well,
hear from Laura.
They kind of said that, and I questioned that at the time because that didn't seem right to me. And I talked to them, and then we all received letters from them today. They were just appalled when they heard that we had the impression, or LTAC had the impression, that it was an all or nothing grant. They told me, we always apply for the maximum. We know we're not going to get it, but that's what we do with all of our grant applications. So they said we would be more than happy with whatever the city allocates to us. And I think we all received a letter. They were
Right.
very
Well, let's hear-
apologetic, and they never said they couldn't completely do it. I have their application, and it said something to the effect, and I can look for it, that they would have to review and make, maybe make some adjustments, but it was never an absolute.
Okay, let's hear from Laura, because they did not show up at the time to
Was that
present their grant.
mandatory?
No, it's not, but it
Okay, well,
helps
then that
give,
doesn't matter.
it does if someone wants to give clarity of their
Fortunate,
application.
it would have been to their benefit to
Sure.
show up, but if it wasn't mandatory, I don't think we can.
I never
penalize
said
them
it
for
was
that.
mandatory. I said they didn't show up, so we didn't know that.
Okay.
So, so let's hear from Laura.
I'm happy to clarify with the discussion that took place within LTAC on why that was awarded the way it was. There were concerns, first of all, that there is also a Tacoma Festival that does the same thing. So if we're following the LTAC guideline of bringing in people from beyond 50 miles to stay overnight, there was a concern that if there's still going to be a Tacoma Festival, where does that audience necessarily translate into a separate Gig Harbor event with the same concept and the same idea? Where would our audience come from? Would it come from mostly within Gig Harbor, or would it come from 50 miles beyond? So that was one of our clarifying moments on that. Within the application, we do ask very specific questions about what an applicant would do if they didn't receive full funding. We also ask, how are there other places that you're going out for funding? And what I believe we had on those two questions was very specific answers that said, if we don't receive the full funding amount, we may not be able to have the event at all, and we would just consider holding the Tacoma event. So that did influence our LTAC a little bit. We've also gone out to all of our applicants and offered guidance throughout the process so that the applications are very, very clear. Everyone can apply for the full amount. It isn't an all or nothing grant. So LTAC had the ability to award any amount from 0 to 20,000 for the Asia Pacific Cultural Center. We did have a very, very competitive grant process this year. We had something like 24 applicants for that $125,000. So it was a more competitive year. I think the opportunity to answer questions would have been clarifying in the moment, but without that, they had to go on what we had within the application and the answers that were provided in those questions on the written application.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, I think that Council Member Denson's motion just said to put 44 days to look at it. So if those two things are on hold, then we'd have a chance to look at it. So I support that amendment.
That's a good point. We're not actually making the decision tonight. We're having it go back to LTAC to talk through these issues. And I guess just to your point, Laura, I definitely understand those things that you were considering, but I kind of saw it a different way. I saw that the APCC has 6 years of experience building this huge event with 2,000 to 2,500 people. If I were them, I'd be worried about all those people wanting to see something new and different on the shores of Gig Harbor Bay, beautiful outside. And so I think they've got a broad reach. I think it would be a very successful event. I think it really fits the spirit of our campaign. And yeah, I don't know where it is unfortunate that they didn't seek your assistance for sure. They sure wish that they did, but they read it differently. And I know I looked at some of the other applications and there were there were mistakes. I don't want to call anybody out because like they all have great intentions, but there was mistakes in other applications too that we could have said, oh, they answered this wrong. They said they were a municipal owned location instead of a for-profit business. And that's not what we're about. We're here to help these events that promote tourism and that build our community. So I just would hope that everyone here would support this. It'll go back to LTAC and then it'll come back to us to flesh it out.
Okay, Councilmember Franich.
So is there a cap set at 125,000?
We've actually approved, I'm sorry, we approved 125, yeah.
Yeah.
And the amendment is just to approve the rest, but just to look at these two to write I believe, write a letter to council, to LTAC, to approve the rest, and then look at these two with LTAC.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem fair to the Crescent Valley Lavender Farm that this motion wants to eliminate them. I haven't heard any reason why that is, other than to maybe supplant the money for this other organization. So I won't be here, so it doesn't really matter. I guess the LTAC will be the one that will go back and decide whether or not they want to switch this, take the 5,000 from Crescent Valley Lavender Farm and appoint it to the Asian Festival. So this seems a little unfair at this point to be pulling money away from somebody that went through the process.
Okay. Councilmember Wook, I'm trying to take turns on who hasn't spoken, so.
So I'm not sure that the Lavender Farm has been notified. Have they been notified?
No applicants have been notified until it's confirmed with council.
But they have heard about it.
If they're following this council meeting and the resolution that's been provided, then yes.
So since they haven't heard about it and since this is going to go back to LTAC within 44 days, I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Did you have another question on this?
No, I just wanted to comment on the Crescent Valley Lavender Farm. It has nothing to do, it wasn't just a switch. I wasn't looking for somebody to take funding from at all. I had separate concerns about the Crescent Valley Lavender Farm that actually came up when I listened to the 3-hour meeting from LTAC. At first, I was shocked that we were granting money to for-profit entities because this is the first time we've done that. But I went back and I read the LTAC rules and found that we can allocate funds to for-profit entities, but it's very specific. It's for marketing and operations of special events and festivals designed to attract tourists. That's in quote. I read it right from there. So for example, one of the for-profit grant recipients, which is Dunnigan's Brewing, the new pub up there and the Uptown area, is proposing a Celtic music festival, and that makes total sense. The Crescent Valley Lavender Farm, however, I mean, it's a wonderful place. I'm glad they're in the community, and I would love for them to come back to us next year and propose like a lavender festival. But what said their whole application was about is basically funds to fund their summer operations and to do promotions like bring in bands and things. And yes, you could argue that brings in tourists to the area, but we have a lot of businesses that do that. We've got tons of coffee shops and bars and restaurants and breweries that bring in restaurants or bring in bands. We've got bookstores that bring in authors. These are just kind of promotional things that businesses do as a matter of course to promote their own business. And they're all great things to do. So I'm afraid it's a really slippery slope that if we allocate funding to a for-profit business that's not doing a specific event designed to really build tourism in the community, I'm afraid that next year we're going to have a whole lot of other businesses coming to us to say, hey, we're going to have bands too, and we're going to have crafts, and we're going to have speakers, and we have a limited amount of money. We only have 125,000 that we've said we're going to allocate to a whole lot of wonderful community nonprofits and real events that are designed to promote tourism. So I just don't think it's an appropriate use of LTAC. And to me, that was a completely separate issue from the Harvest Moon Festival.
Okay.
And I do want to clarify with Josh. Josh, with the motion, I know we have to.
Can you clarify this with Laura? Because it is her department.
Laura.
Please.
Sorry, Laura. The 45-day consulting period, is that required for removing funds and adding funds, or is it It's confusing to me.
I believe it is any change in the allocation of those funds. That goes back to LTAC for review and then comes back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Hymes.
Yes, just a clarifying question to Josh Stecker. If we were to approve this tonight, this amendment, is there time this year yet to actually implement this thing? Or are we talking a Christmas meeting? What are we talking here?
No.
So just to answer the question, if you approve the resolution tonight, it authorizes us to spend the funds in 2022. So city staff won't take any action on this until next year when we start drafting the contracts. And typically that doesn't happen until March or April. So it's not something we're going to take action on right away.
But
Okay,
as
so-
far as the action goes for making the award, if you adopt the resolution as it's been proposed to amend, it will be for 120,000. And it will not include $5,000 because that's up in the air. We send something to the LTAC right away that says, we don't want to fund this project. We want to fund this project. We're required to get advice and information from you. We might be able to get that done before the end of the year, but it could involve, as the mayor just said, having a meeting in the last couple of weeks of the year. And we weren't planning that.
I think this is a great topic for next year's council, to be quite honest. Okay.
That's- Yeah, for the five.
That's
And because once again, we don't know. Okay, we don't have the power of LTAC. Okay, you've got to go get that authority. Okay, to act. And we're running out of time once again and trying to solve the unsolvable here tonight and authorize something that we don't fully understand. So with that, I am going to, again, make my motion called, let's shut down this table, this amendment request, okay, until basically 2022 and go from there. I think the message has been received and I think it's worthy of some discussion, but I think it has to take place in an environment where we're not holding all these other projects hostage to have this discussion. So
But clarifying, we're not. I mean, I've understood LTAC very much. So you have 45 days. If any of this you want differently, you have 45 days to tell LTAC what you want different. They have, I think, 30 days to then respond. If you want, and they just respond. You don't have to respond back to them. You can do whatever you want. But I wouldn't hold up all these other ones with one little change.
Yeah.
I surely wouldn't hold up all these other ones. They're not going to like that.
So where we are tonight is if we pass the original motion tonight to approve basically resolution 1224, okay, as is, okay, you still have time to request a change, okay?
Well, the motion right now is to approve 1224 with amendment to allocate 5,000 to one group and 5,000 to another, and then send that letter to LTAC, and then go back and you can get clarifying questions on those two groups. They can at that time next year.
Okay, so we're passing something that we really don't know. It's an if-come proposition.
You're passing this whole thing with two items that you're wanting to go back to LTAC and have them review more.
Okay.
And the rest of it gets to go forward.
Why can't that take place as a standalone motion?
This is because you're amending, this is also the city's budget too.
It's because the original motion was made to adopt the resolution. At that point, the only way to change it is to do an amending motion, which is what Councilmember Denson did. So you then vote on the amendment, and then you would vote on the original motion to adopt the resolution at that point as amended.
Okay.
And then we can go on, and then you've just got two groups that are going to be decided upon next year.
Okay. Okay. So with that understanding, that changes my outlook a little bit.
Okay.
This is strictly a procedural thing called, hey, we're agreeing that, yeah, this should be taken a look at.
Right.
But it's not influencing the base amendment, the base resolution,
Correct.
correct?
It's,
Good, thank
it's
you.
saying we agree on everything except one item, which is going to be sent back to LTAC for discussion.
Right. And actually, yeah, it's really one item because the other one wasn't awarded.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and we're almost there. I think Councilmember Markley.
Yes, I was just gonna ask, if we're bound, is there a time frame if we just wanted to add money to, if we wanted to award the 5,000 to the festival and not take, or to the Korean festival and not take anything away from Crescent Valley Lavender Farm? Is it subject to the same 45 days?
Well, you've actually already passed your budget. When we passed the 2022 budget an hour ago, this 125 was in there.
Okay.
So we would have to amend what we just passed.
Okay.
So, and council already supported the 125 last summer, and they had to support that.
It was just a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I was just wanting to know if we added money to someone or asked LTAC if we wanted to fund the festival based on an obvious misunderstanding, and it is an event, if we took it back to their consideration to add funds, would that require the same 45-day period? It's just a question.
And right now by policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, the 125 is the maximum amount of grants that can be given. As the mayor pointed out, you did adopt a budget that had $125,000 in it for grants. What I'd like to do is sit down and talk to Laura about the process and what the law says when it comes to how we would go about adding an additional $5,000 of grant money. I'm guessing we're going to have to change our policy, and then we'd have to amend the budget.
Right.
Okay. I wasn't making a motion to do that, by the way. I was just asking a question.
Understood. I didn't hear the words. I move.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and we have an amendment to it. I think everyone's clear. If anyone's not, I think everyone's clear that they would approve 1224 with one item of 5,000 held to send a letter to LTAC to review that with various groups. Yes, Daniel.
This is just the amendment portion of that right now.
Right. Correct. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Wook.
Aye.
Councilmember Himes.
Aye.
Councilmember Franich.
Aye.
Councilmember Abersold.
Aye.
Councilmember Markley.
Aye.
Okay, now we're at the original motion. Do I have a?
I already made a motion.
Okay, great, thank you. That's where I was. I was stuck. All those in favor say aye. Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Wook.
Aye.
Councilmember Himes.
Aye.
Councilmember Franich.
Aye.
Councilmember Abersold.
Aye.
Councilmember Markley.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Councilmember Wook. I was like, okay, did we do that?
Mayor, can we have a 5-minute recess?
Yes, if there's, Councilmember Denson, would you prepare that letter since you made that? So it would go to LTAC and you can reach out to Laura if you want to have some of that.
Yes, I
wording.
will need help from Laura.
Yeah, she can work with Laura to get.
Yeah, work with Laura on
Do
that.
that.
Great.
Thank you. Thank
So-
you.
And if there's no objection, we will have a 5-minute recess.
Are we doing the executive session?
I think,
Item 4.
yeah, we are. So,
Do the recess after the executive session?
Well, we can take the recess, we come back in here, start the meeting again, and that's when we then would go into executive session.
okay, so that sounds good. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. I do want everyone to know that's here or that's listening that item number 4, we are actually going to executive session for 15 minutes. There, Josh. We will now, we are returned from our council break. And our item right now is new business number 4, first reading and adoption of ordinance 1475, temporary suspension of special use provisions. We will be going into executive session to discuss potential litigation per RCW 42.30.110 parentheses I. We will be in there 10 minutes. The time right now is 8:15, so we will return at 8:25. Josh, you can put it on You can take the recording off, please. Okay, we are back from executive session and we're on new business 4, which is first reading and adoption of ordinance 1475, temporary suspension of special use provisions. The report is from our Community Development Director, Katrina Knudsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, council is considering ordinance 1475, which would extend the suspension of special use permits and suspend fees for encroachment permits for COVID-related purposes. Council directed staff to bring this ordinance forward following a presentation at their October 26th work session. Currently, ordinance 1446 is in effect, which provides for extension or suspension of special use permits and suspension of encroachment permit fees for COVID-related purposes until 90 days after the state COVID emergency is lifted. Again, council, tonight you're considering ordinance 1475, which would extend the suspension from 90 days after the statewide emergency is lifted to 120 days after the state emergency is lifted. And I'm available with any questions, Mayor.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions from council? Okay, we will open up the public comment. Tony, were there any handwritten or emails sent in on this topic? Okay, please. Can you pull that? I think, sorry.
Thank you. The first one is from Abigail and Frank Hodge, 2901 Harborview Drive. Dear Gig Harbor City Council members, we appreciate and support the initial purpose of ordinances 1445, 1446, 1448. As stated in the memorandum to the council for your October 26th study session, the purpose was to, quote, provide local retail store and restaurants flexibility to conduct business when physical occupancies were limited to 25% for retail stores and restaurants could not have diners indoors. Both restrictions were lifted on June 30th, 2021, approximately 5 months ago. As a result, all Gig Harbor businesses have reverted to serving customers indoors. At the time of the October 26th study session, only 6 businesses continue to rely on the temporary suspension of special use provisions. Half are breweries or distilleries, which tend to be some of the noisiest and most traffic intensive businesses in Gig Harbor. With the lifting of capacity restrictions on June 30th and the continued unrestricted expansion of outdoor drinking spaces enabled by the ordinances, some businesses are serving more customers than they would legally be able to serve indoors, which has significantly increased traffic and noise near these businesses and raised concerns about safety. We speak from personal experience as we live next door to one and have had to resort to keeping our doors and windows closed and use a white noise machine to try and drown out the significant increase in noise. In some ordinances, 1445, 1446, and 1448 were adopted to temporarily help businesses in a time of need. They did that. With the removal of seating restrictions 5 months ago, their purpose no longer exists and businesses have had a significant amount of time, going on 18 months, to recover any costs incurred to move customers outside. In addition, after ordinance 1448 expires, any business can still apply to the city to increase its serving footprint. The city will then thoroughly assess the noise, safety, and other implications of the request. This assessment is currently bypassed under ordinance 1448. After the city assesses the costs and benefits of any proposal is critical. Having the city assess the costs and benefits of any proposal is critical to a fair and transparent process that is inclusive of all affected residents. Please do not continue to impose significant costs on neighborhoods by again extending the sunset date of ordinance 1448. Thank you. Second one is from Steve and Ann Chapman, 2829 Harborview Drive. Gig Harbor City Council members. The Chapmans were able to dine at some of their favorite restaurants in Gig Harbor due to ordinance 1448 while COVID restrictions were in place. The purpose of the ordinance was to provide local retail store and restaurants flexibility to conduct business when physical occupancies were limited to 25% for retail stores and restaurants could not have diners indoors. This restriction was lifted on June 30th, 2021. As a result, most Gig Harbor businesses have reverted to serving customers indoors. At the time of the October 26th study session, only 6 businesses continue to rely on the temporary suspension of special use provisions. Half are breweries or distilleries, which tend to be some of the noisiest and most traffic intensive businesses in the city. While the outdoor seating areas allowed increased business during COVID restriction, it also increased the outdoor noise generated by these businesses. We've had the misfortune of being located near a beer garden that was erected at 2905 Harborview Drive. The decking at the back of what was the quiet Green Turtle restaurant provides adequate outdoor seating for patrons wishing to view the harbor and places them at a greater distance from the residential properties to the east. In sum, Ordinance 1448 was adopted to temporarily help businesses in a time of need. Mission accomplished. With the removal of seating restrictions 5 months ago, its purpose no longer exists, and businesses have had a significant amount of time, going on 18 months, to recover any costs incurred to move customers outside. In addition, after Ordinance 1448 expires, any business can still apply to the city to increase its serving footprint. The city will then thoroughly assess the noise, safety, and other implications of the request. This assessment is currently bypassed under Ordinance 1448. Having the city assess the costs and benefits of any proposal is critical to a fair and transparent process that is inclusive of all affected residents. Third one is from Tim Gartland, 2827 Harborview Drive. This was originally sent to the council on October 26th, but he sent it again as his comment for tonight. Dear Mayor and Council, my family and I own property which will be negatively impacted should the mayor and city council decide to make permanent the provisions temporarily allowed under Ordinance 1448. As such, it is our strongest desire that the provisions permitted by this ordinance be allowed to sunset as originally planned on December 31st, 2021, or when the governor lifts the emergency order. Our neighborhood abuts the Seven Seas Brewery and Beer Garden site on the waterfront. Our neighbors, Frank and Abby Hodge, have written previously and extensively regarding this matter, so I won't duplicate their efforts. They've provided videos, photos, and descriptions of how the ordinance exacerbates the noise impacts upon our otherwise quiet residential area. I fully support their arguments for opposing a permanent extension of the special provisions allowed under this ordinance. While it could be argued that the ordinance should be extended for other retail and restaurant businesses in Gig Harbor, the situation for the Seven Seas Brewery and Beer Garden is unique as their site abuts our residential neighborhood. The memorandum you received from Katrina Knutson lists 6 businesses which currently utilize the temporary suspension. Of the 6, only Seven Seas abuts a residential neighborhood. As such, the impacts of making the provisions allowed under the ordinance will be particularly acute in this instance. As such, I ask that this case be considered with special attention. Otherwise, as Frank and Abby's comments have illuminated, the livability of their property in our neighborhood will be permanently diminished. Respectfully submitted for your consideration. Last item is from Catherine DiMaggio at 2823 Harborview Drive in Gig Harbor. Dear Gig Harbor City Council members, please do not approve Ordinance 1475, suspending certain provisions of Chapter 17.65 Gig Harbor Municipal Code, special use permits, and fees associated with Chapter 12.02 Gig Harbor Municipal Code, encroachment permits for the purpose of facilitating commerce during the COVID-19 pandemic. Limitations on occupancy for retail stores and indoor dining for restaurants have been lifted and they have returned to normal business. If concern continues for economic recovery of these establishments, allow them to follow the established process, which allows the city to individually approve requests after assessing if the neighborhood's infrastructure and protects all citizens. My concern is the safety of my neighborhood. With an unlimited number of people comes an increase in the number of cars in a neighborhood that cannot support the traffic and parking. Even when the establishment is closed, it is difficult to safely navigate the road in a car or while walking. Additional cars in the narrow road at the blind intersection and illegally parked, and this says illegally parked, result in a potential unsafe condition for the residents and can prevent emergency vehicles access to our homes. Thank you for your consideration. And that is all that was submitted in writing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would there be anyone from the public that wishes to comment on this? Please step forward. Or please raise your hand or push *9 or *6 on your phone. And then as you come up, please state your name and your address, and then 3 minutes if you would, please.
Yes, Mayor and City Council members, I'm Frank Hodge, one of the letter writers at 2901 Harborview Drive. I think you can tell from the letters that this has really been a significant and negative effect on our neighborhood. I have one additional request. I don't want to reiterate the points that were made in the letter, but the positive comments, I've followed this case very closely as you went through your study session and other public comments. Almost without exception, the public comments are from patrons of the breweries, distilleries, and restaurants. Those patrons come for an hour or two, and then the next set of patrons come, and the next set of patrons come, and the next set of patrons come. The residents that live by those places deal with the noise those patrons bring 7 days a week, 10 hours a day in the case of the 7 Cs. And so I would ask you not to weight the positive comments of the patrons equal to the negative effects that are being felt by the neighbors and the residents of the city of Gig Harbor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've watched the people that are listening and no one else has raised their hand, so I will close the public comment period of time. And see if there's any movement with a motion. Okay, we will go on to new business number 5.
Just to make sure everyone understands that no one on the council made a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading, therefore it dies.
Which means we follow the governor's orders, correct?
We follow what is going on currently with the old ordinance 1448.
That's correct. Great. And we still want all of our patrons, to apply, to follow the codes that we have in our city and our regulations.
That's correct. The Community Development Department will be reaching out to those businesses that are currently utilizing the temporary suspensions and offering to partner on permit assistance for if they want to make their utilize those type of things permanently through the proper permitting channels.
Thank you. Okay, so our 5th item is first reading of ordinance 1477, 2021 comprehensive plan amendment. Our report tonight is our principal planner, Carl DeSimas.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you, council, members of the public in attendance. Before you tonight, we bring ordinance 1477 relating to the comprehensive plan amendment docket for 2021. In February, council initiated 5 amendments to the comprehensive plan. The first one was adding an arts and culture element, 2 proposals related to potential amendments to the land use and housing elements, and 2 of the amendments were related to the Shoreline Master Program. The 2 Shoreline Master Program amendments have already been processed and adopted by council because amendments to the city's master program are not subject to the required comprehensive plan amendment procedures. The land use and housing element amendments are dependent upon the results of the urban growth area analysis and a yet to be initiated housing attainability assessment. Because neither of the 2 analysis reports have been finalized to date, proposing amendments to those elements is premature at this time. Therefore, this ordinance 1477, is only relative to the proposal to add an arts and culture element to the comp plan. After initiation in February, staff worked with the consultant and took the proposal back to the Arts Commission for refinement and then on to Planning Commission for study and a public hearing. Several comments in support of the proposal were received both at the docket hearing in February and at the recent Planning Commission hearing. Both sets of comments have been provided in your packets. Planning Commission provided a written recommendation for adoption of the amendment with specified edits. Those edits have been incorporated into the ordinance before you tonight. Tonight is council's first reading of ordinance 1477. The ordinance provides draft findings and a conclusion for council's consideration, as well as the draft element as recommended by the Planning Commission. Staff is recommending that the council consider the ordinance, seek any clarification from staff, hear from the public, determine any edits they would like made to the ordinance, and direct staff accordingly. Thank you, Mayor. This concludes my presentation, and I am available for questions.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions from council? Okay, with that, I will open up the public comment. Tony, were there any handwritten or emails turned in?
I have one letter, Your Honor.
Okay.
From Wendy Given Hess, member of the Harbor Poetry Collective. She did not give a address. Dear Mr. DeSimas and Gig Harbor City Council members, I understand that tonight the council will be meeting to discuss the first reading of the arts and culture proposal. As a member of the Harbor Poetry Collective, I want to affirm the tenets of that proposal and lend my support. As you know, Gig Harbor already has established itself as a community that fosters and develops the creative arts in all its lively incantations. Inasmuch as this proposal would enhance yet further the goals of bringing the community into an interactive relationship with the arts, it seems that now more than ever, continued and additional support is needed. One of the many reasons to support this proposal is because programs that focus on bringing people together helps to sustain and inspire community itself. Arts and culture programs are vital because they have the capacity to transcend the struggles we all share, such as the pandemic, and can bring joy and peace of mind to an often troubled world. For that reason alone, please vote yes for the arts and culture element when the time comes to finalize the budget in December. Thank you and sincerely.
Thank you. And we will, anyone from the public or online wish to comment on this?
Hi, Lynn Stevenson, 7406.
So
Hill
just a sec,
Avenue.
for some reason, Josh, there's a delay in when you start the recording for them? Okay, please start again.
Yeah, hi, Lynn Stevenson, 7406 Hill Avenue, Gig Harbor. I'm here to support the addition of the arts and culture amendment to the comprehensive plan. And you have a letter from me in your packet. So where I basically talk about how we, the art, oh, I'm also on the Arts Commission. So we've been talking about this at the Arts Commission for at least the last 3 years. And it's been a rigorous process. And thanks to the work of Charlie Glock Jackson, the chair of the Arts Commission, for sure. And I believe that you all understand the economic value and the experiential value that the arts bring to our residents and visitors. But this is not reflected in our current comprehensive plan. So I kind of went over that in my letter, but tonight I thought I'd take this opportunity to reiterate some of the words from Mark Hoppin. So Mark, in his letter, Mark submitted a lengthy letter, and I wanted to, I like what he said because I think he puts it in municipal management terms that I don't do so well. So this is from Mark Hoppin. He says, right now, parks investment and arts investment are mixed in the same planning pot. Parks are always a net drain or at best break even, whereas arts are a potential big economic gain. Mixing the two areas in one pot confuses public investment focus, diminishes art investment, and tends to restrict city economic growth. He also says having a properly focused comprehensive plan is always the best first step towards strategic municipal budget solvency and fiscal health. Thank you to Mark Hoppin for those words. And thank you for considering this amendment to the comp plan.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public or listening wish to comment on this? Okay, we will close the public comment and go back to staff. Oh, I'm sorry. Where? Oh, yes, go ahead, Ben. I will open up the public comment. I didn't see that till the last minute. Ben, are you there?
Oh, yep, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, hi, Ben Coronado, 8019 Mitz Lane, 98332. Yeah, I just want to say I'm fully in favor of the Arts Commission moving forward with their own plan, as I believe that it could add a lot of benefit to strengthening the arts in our community. Right now, it's just a subset within the parks plan, and I really think they have a lot to offer, and moving forward to strengthen the arts in our community. That's all I had to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment? Okay, I will close the public comment. Councilmember Wook.
Yes, thank you. For the record, I served in 2018 on the Arts and Culture Element Committee. I want to thank you to all the folks who have written in tonight.
and spoken this evening. On this addition to the comprehensive plan, your words are important. Our comprehensive plan is a statement of what is important to Gig Harbor today and to the future vision of Gig Harbor. Gig Harbor has a rich history of embracing art and culture. For 23 years, there has been a summer art festival on Judson Street. Every Friday night before the pandemic, you could listen to music at any number of coffee shops and breweries. During the summertime, you can find music on Tuesday nights and films on the weekend downtown. Gig Harbor has a wonderful film festival that is recognized throughout the United States. We have carved wood from downed trees in several parks around town. Our most recent culture and native art from the Honoring Project is due to be installed soon at the Twalacott Estuary. Prior to the pandemic, Gig Harbor citizens completed a survey stating how important arts and culture are to their life in Gig Harbor. We know arts and culture matter to our citizens because they attend these events. They support these events with their dollars. These arts and culture dollars contribute to the economic engine of Gig Harbor. Arts and culture play a major part of life in Gig Harbor, and it is time that it is recognized with its own element in the comprehensive plan. Adding arts and culture element to our comprehensive plan sends the word to our community and others that Gig Harbor recognizes the value of arts and culture to our citizens, community, and to the economy of our city. Adding an arts and culture element to our comprehensive plan will also allow these organizations and individual artists to apply for grants. And to the state on their applications, another qualifying reason for awarding a grant to someone from Gig Harbor is because Gig Harbor values arts and culture with an element in the comprehensive plan. Thank you to the Planning Commission for recommending this inclusion of arts and culture element to our comprehensive plan. And I look forward to supporting this when it comes back to council on December 13th. Thank you.
Councilmember Hines.
Yeah, just clarification. In the agenda, it talks about deliberation and action. Is this approval on first reading or is this coming back on the 13th?
It's coming back.
Okay.
Yep. Great. Okay, we will move on to, that's coming back for second reading. We will move on to new business 6, resolution 1222, establishing fees for public rental of Ansich human-powered craft storage racks. Our report tonight is Public Works Director Jeff Langhelm.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. As you know, the city completed the Gig Harbor completed the Ansich Waterfront Park building and amenities in late 2018. The city since then has partnered with the canoe and kayak race team and the Jerkovich family to complete the final design, the permitting, and the construction of the human-powered watercraft launch floats down at the park. These floats have come to be known as the Community Paddlers Dock. With that dock now under construction, we're in the last phases of making the dream a reality to have that boat storage building used by the public. The last steps in the process are to order the racks, which are now in the approved budget. Administration has been developing the storage rental terms for the public to use the facility. And then tonight's action is a request to adopt fees to rent those storage racks to the public. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to show on screen what was proposed with tonight's action. So I believe that's the table that was provided. These fees were reviewed by the mayor and discussed on November 9th at the Public Works Committee meeting. They've also been reviewed in an earlier version with the Parks Commission. When reviewing these fees, one question that was asked by the Public Works Committee was, how does the anticipated total revenue from these fees for public storage compared to the storage area that's being rented by the Gig Harbor Canoe and Kayak Race Team? And so I just wanted to give a quick summary of what that comparison looks like. So let's just use what we don't have a final layout of the boat storage building racks, and it all depends actually on how many of the various sizes of boats are used, but let's just use an average number of about 40 boats being placed in the public side of the boat storage rack. And then using an average fee of, my understanding is most users will either put in stand-up paddle boards or kayaks. Let's use an average fee of $200 per boat. And the public side of the storage building is about 1,200 square feet. So using all of those numbers, that comes out to about $1.11 a square foot is what the city would take in per month. Comparing that to what the Gig Harbor Canoe and Kayak Race Team currently pays, they have about 1,400 square feet. And they pay right now, the costs have escalated throughout the years, but right now they're paying about $1,600 a month for about 1,400 square feet. And that totals about $1.07 a square foot. So we're talking, it's very comparable what we're proposing here in terms of revenues that are generated. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. So the fees that are going to be collected from the ANSH storage rack use are going to be used to pay for maintaining the facility and paying for the salaries for staff to maintain the building. And to offset the cost of purchasing the racks. Right now, I believe that in the 2022 budget, the racks purchase budget is $26,000. So that'll be some of that money every month will be used to pay back, or every 6 months. We're proposing a rental period, as you probably saw, a rental period of in 6-month increments. And so that money would be used to pay back some of the costs of the storage racks. One other takeaway from the Public Works Committee meeting was that the committee recommended that staff compare fees for storage racks that's being proposed tonight to other facilities around the region. And so I have done that. I'm going to now share my screen. Click a couple buttons here. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and show you what our comparison looks like. Okay, so now on the screen, you'll see on the right side is essentially that same table you saw before. And on the left side is the comparisons we made. So there's proposed fees for the Foss Waterway Park in Tacoma. Those are proposed. I don't believe the park is fully developed yet. I don't know. I'm looking back at Ellen or Kristen to tell me if it is, but that's the fees that have been proposed for Foss Waterway. And then there's fees for Kenmore Waterfront Activity Center and for Point Defiance Boathouse. Some of these facilities do monthly fees. The city is proposing to do 6-month rental periods. And so I've converted those monthly fees to 6-month periods. And I hope you can read those okay. It's about as big as I can get them, but I can get them a little bigger if you want to see just the comparison fees.
A question, so we're not charging anymore for a double kayak or double canoe?
No, because we're charging a base rate plus a surcharge per foot. So we're capturing those additional sizes based on the surcharge that's going to be added per foot.
And are the fees you have up there for us, those are for a 6-month period. That's not a monthly fee.
Correct. That's a 6-month rental period. So again, you can see our fees, and I put down at the very bottom the regional average for a 6-month fee for across all boat types. It was $163.
Thank you.
Oh. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing again. So again, you have before you tonight a fee table. You probably saw on your fee table also, I didn't say it out loud, but at the very bottom, the city is looking to put storage lockers in. There's a fee in there setting the rate for that, $60 for a 6-month period, and also an application fee. It will take some time for anyone who applies for rental to be able to go through process payments and actually first of all, verify if we don't have enough space for everybody, we're going to have to hold a lottery. And that's part of our rental terms and policy, is that we're going to hold a lottery if there's more applications than what we have capacity for. And so, the rental terms, it describes that our applications will be due, I think it's 2 months before the rental period. Rental periods are from January to July and July to December. And so that application fee will cover the staff time necessary to process those applications, connect with people, to let everybody know who wins the lottery, and then coordinate from that point. So that's our list of proposed fees. Happy to answer any questions at this point.
I might add, this is kind of uncharted waters because we haven't done this before. So it's just a start, as far as each year, we'll fine tune it as we hear from the public. Councilmember Franich.
Yeah, hey, Jeff, in the comparable cities that you were using, do you have any idea what the amenities were like? What those storage facilities, were they brand new buildings like this one is, or were they have bathrooms? I mean, what?
All of them had bathrooms nearby. I have not visited the Kenmore. I've only seen aerial photos of where the Foss Waterway facility would be. But all of them had either restrooms on site or nearby. For those of you who are not familiar, the Point Defiance Boathouse is an old wood structure with 2 levels on it. That fee that you saw on the screen was for just having a rack on the wall that you put your kayak in. And there, as if you haven't been down there, there are restrooms right there on site. It's not necessarily easy to get a kayak. The boathouse is made for launching larger boats, power motor boats, 12 to 20 foot. You have to take your kayaks and walk around the building. But there's ample parking. It's just an older facility. The Foss Waterway would be a brand new facility at the very end of Foss Waterway, closest towards the Tacoma Dome. And the Kenmore facility is actually ran by a nonprofit group. But I believe the structure itself is owned by the city of Kenmore.
Right. Well, maybe I'll look into the condition of those. I should have done it before the meeting. These rates just seem a little bit low to me, considering we're talking about a $1.3 million building, let alone a $12 million park project. So that's why I had some questions on whether we're comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges. And I'm very familiar from the old days of the Point Defiance boat storage lockers and where their fuel dock was, and is that where people put their kayaks in the water off that big?
I'm not sure if they actually walk them down the ramps to the floats that are down in the water, or if they walk them around toward the land side and then walk them, what would that be? I guess northwest toward Owens Beach. I'm not sure which way they go.
Yeah, because I can get pretty rough in there where you used to have to tie up next to those floats.
It can get very rough to come in and out of those fuel floats. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wook.
Thank you. I have 2 questions for you. The comparable locations, do we know what the capacity of those locations are, how many boats they hold?
Well, I don't know how many they hold.
Okay,
No.
so they could be larger. They could be much larger capacity than Gig Harbor.
They could be, yes.
Okay. So the second question, I want to make sure that this is not a profit center for the city. So if you could go and discuss a little bit more exactly what these funds are going to go for, and yeah, we could do that.
Well, it will take some staff time, especially at the beginning of this, when we embark on this journey, to manage access in and out. So the facility itself has roll-up doors. It has items that will need to be maintained, but also every time we have people come in and out, our staff is going to have to go down there and adjust the racks. These are going to be adjustable racks. We're not going to know at the beginning of the process each 6 months, how many paddle boards, how many kayaks, how many canoes we're going to have. And so, but we're trying to maintain some flexibility in the racks and be able to handle more paddle boards or be able to adjust depending on how many boats of each size we get. And so somebody's gonna have to go down there and adjust. So we'll be paying salaries to do that. And then at least once a year, we're gonna have a full clean out of the facility. There's gonna be at least a 3 or 4 day period, workday period, that there will be no boats, nothing in the locker in that building. And it will give time for our crew to go in there and have scheduled cleaning, remove everything out of there, clean everything and put everything back. And then just to do the daily maintenance or the weekly maintenance on repairing things as they break or just keeping things clean. And then managing the actual implementation, the lottery, and that'll be the administrative side for us.
Thank you. Then I move to adopt Resolution 1222, establishing fees for the public rental of Ansage humid power craft storage racks.
Second.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we're going to, it's going to cost us more money than we're going to make, I'm sure. So, Councilmember Himes.
Yeah, I just seconded.
Okay.
Councilmember Wilk's motion.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, the comparative rates are important to me. And it would have been nice if we would have got them in this package because for the 3 minutes they were up there, I couldn't really study them. So in short, are we more or less expensive than those other facilities?
We are more expensive than those other facilities. I'm sorry. I'll put them back up for a minute. I apologize.
But I still can't see them. They're so faded in there.
Okay, let me see.
And I got old eyes.
I don't know if that's any better.
Yeah, that's nice to look at it, but it's not the same as studying it, you know? I mean, I can look at it, but can't study it. So you answered my question. We're more expensive than other facilities.
Correct.
Can I give you one more comparison? I store my kayak at the city of Des Moines in one of their dry sheds. They have a capacity for about 8 to 10 kayaks in one of their dry sheds, and they charge $45 a month. So that's $270 per 6-month period, which is higher than what we're proposing here for the average size kayak.
Okay.
So
wait a minute. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand. Did you say they charge more there?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Denson.
Yes, Mr. Lingham, I apologize if you mentioned this, but I know people are going to ask, did you say when, if we pass this tonight, when those applications will be up on the city website and when we anticipate they'll actually be able to move their boats in?
I did not say we won't be having boats moved in until we have the community paddlers dock in place. And so right now we're finalizing the layout inside for the storage racks, and then we'll be ordering those racks. And the racks will probably come in first part of the year, and then they'll be installed and be ready to go and be used by the time the community paddlers dock is open and available to the public. We realize that we're not going to hit that January 1st deadline for the first 6-month period, so we'll have to prorate the first 6-month period. We'll probably start the process in January to accept applications. We'll be working with Laura Pettit and putting things on our website to get the word out, that so we can have a fair amount of time that people are notified about this. And one of the key points was we need to make sure that we had the fees established so that we could advertise that as part of our process.
Councilmember Himes.
Yes, just in support of the motion. I think we're in the ballpark, as I would call it at this point. And I think it's consistent with our knowledge of where we are relative to these other marinas. In terms of, is our scenery more beautiful there? Yeah, it probably is. You can go on, but I think the key here is to get our toe in the water, see what demand really looks like for this thing. And then we can always adjust one way or the other, okay, up or down. So I'm strongly in favor of getting out there and saying, hey, let's throw this on the table, see what happens. And then if we have to make adjustments downstream, we do that.
Thank you. Councilmember Rodenberg.
Yeah, I just had a question in any of our rules, regulations, contracts, is there anything that covers somebody trying to sublease their rack? Since we are less expensive than other places, somebody, enterprising young person might want to make a buck.
Yes, that's a very good point. We have prohibited any subleasing.
So we do have that in there.
Yes, it
Thank
says
you.
that in the terms.
Yeah, another question, did you? Okay. There's a motion. I'm going to open up this to public comment. I don't think I've done that. So were there any letters that were written or emails that came through, Tony?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Anyone from the public, either online, on their phone, or here, would like to comment on this? Please come forward. Or push *9 or *6.
Hi, Kirsten Gregory, Gig Harbor Canoe and Kayak Racing Team, which operates out of 3211 Harbor View Drive. Just in case it's helpful for context, I have done some of this research on comparables in the past. And Jeff can maybe comment on if there's new information, but the Kenmore location, those racks are outside, not inside. And there are, I believe, less than 18 spaces there, and they were never at capacity. The point defiance racks are in as you guys have discussed, a pretty old building that's not very close to the water, conducive to the water. I believe they had 40 spaces, maybe less than that, and they consistently run at 80% capacity. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else to wish to comment? Okay, I will close the public comment. And we've got a motion, Councilmember Rodenberg. Okay, no worries. Okay, let's vote on all those, whether it's a motion. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Abstain? Okay, motion passes 6-1. And we have our 7th item tonight, which is first reading of ordinance 1478, Parks Related Code Update. Our report tonight again is from our Public Works Director, Jeff Langhill.
Thank you, Mayor. With the ordinance you have before you tonight, the staff is proposing to update multiple sections of the city's code as it relates to the operations of parks. As noted in the council bill, there's 3 distinct adjustments that are being proposed. The first adjustment is the creation of a new section of code. That's chapter 8.23 for the creation of the rules for the community paddlers dock that we just noted is under construction. This new chapter is intended to recognize the Jerkovich family's 24-hour access to their float system and having to go through the park to gain that access. Which is different than all other park rules. It also limits the use of the dock to active launching of human-powered craft. So it will establish that it's prohibited for any motorized vessel to come up. It's prohibited to any vessel just come up and tie or moor to the facility. It's for active launching of craft, human-powered craft only. And then lastly, it's intended to codify that the dock is available for the general public for the free public use and access on a first come, first served basis. This was placed in there because that is required by the Department of Natural Resources under the sublease for the site. And so the second section, second part of the ordinance has to do with some minor adjustments to both chapters 8.28, which is Jerusich dock rules, and chapter 9.24, which are general park rules. These adjustments that are proposed in the ordinance are intended to clarify and define the typical operating hours for city parks. And then lastly, staff is recommending that we add a subsection into chapter 9.29 for the park rules that prohibits the use or discharge of fireworks in city parks. Right now, there's no prohibition on that. So that's a general summary of the ordinance. I'd be happy to answer any questions or go through each section if you want.
Okay, it doesn't look like there's any clarifying questions. And with that, I will open it up for public comment to people phoning in, listening online, or here in the public. I go first? Yes.
Alan Anderson, 1622 South Mildred. I stayed here out of respect for y'all. See what you really do, and I'm impressed. I just have a really simple thing. I also wanted to say thank you to all of you that have served the community and are moving on. What Jeff was just presenting about the dock operating hours is a challenge for the team, especially for the youngest kids, because it says 1/2 hour after dusk. So it was, after the sun goes down. So the sun went down at 4:27 tonight. So that means we have to be off the dock, have the boathouse clean and out of there by 5 o'clock. What I'm hoping to accomplish is a little adjustment there just during the months of, say, November through March, when it's really dark. The kids don't get out of school till 3:15, some of them. And just a little bit of leeway there. That's all. All the rest of it looks fine to me, but it was a hard fought battle to get down in that building. And you might say, hey, no one's going to mind a few extra minutes here and there, but I think it should be written in there. It should be, that should be amended because we don't want to get in trouble. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the public wish to talk on this? Okay, Tony, were there any comments?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, I will close the public comment portion. With support of council, I would suggest, I think that makes sense that the kids do get out of school and it is 4:30. Wow. So I would suggest with the support of council that the kayak team sits down with Jeff. This would also help for other people, our public that wants to use the building as well. So it's not just the kayak team, it's our public. If there's no objection, I would like Jeff to sit down with the kayak team and also what we feel would be for our public to maybe establish something a little bit later in the winter months. Is there any objection from council on that?
And we could bring that back at the second reading.
Yes, it is going still to second reading. It just gives the time to modify this for the second reading. So this is not a vote.
Correct. So I just want to clarify, it would be for the winter months only, or?
I think just the winter months,
Okay.
because it's, we're blessed with 10:30.
Yeah.
Or something like that in the summer.
Okay, I will make a proposal.
Okay.
And bring it back to second reading.
Sounds great. And if you have any chances to talk to anyone in the public that, that you think that would be good to have their input as well. Okay. Councilmember Franich.
Yeah, I hope while you're having that discussion that you pay particularly close attention to the safety aspects of this. That's could be just safety is kind of a big deal.
And when you review this isn't just for one park, it's for both those two, correct? It's for Ansich as well as Jerkovich. Is that correct?
Well, I was going to approach it, it would be for the Antich Park and the community paddlers dock.
Okay.
Only.
Okay.
That one
All
facility.
right. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilman Rodenberg.
I'd like to see it for both docks. It's really nice when you're downtown, maybe you've had dinner or something, to take a walk out on Ansich Pier and dock. So I'd like to see it for both of those. I don't imagine, it's not going to be hours. So just enough, the restaurants downtown, you eat dinner, you take a little walk. I think it's nice.
Of course, I don't think that dock ever closes. This is actually you can walk on that.
Oh, we're closing it in this.
But
Oh, you mean okay. Yeah, that's good point. So how is that? Jeff.
Well, I'll clarify. The code as it reads today, and partially with this clarifications being made here, is that if you have a boat moored to Jersich dock, there is no closed time. You can access that dock 24 hours a day. If you don't have a boat moored to Jersich dock, then you're limited to the park hours as defined by code. So half an hour before sunrise, half an hour after sunset. So what I'm hearing though is Councilman Rodenberg is asking for Jersich dock to also be included, that it's similar to this language, that for winter time, and I'll define what winter time means, that duration after sunset could be extended from like 30 minutes to 60 minutes or something.
Yeah, I mean,
Or possibly just to a set time, 6 PM or sunset, whenever, whatever, dusk, whatever is less.
I mean, I didn't know you had to have a boat till I walk on that at 10 o'clock at night. I didn't know you had, I didn't know you had to have a boat.
You learned something
Yeah.
tonight, huh?
Well,
Chief, can you?
I learned to wear dark clothes.
You just heard him admit that he was breaking the ordinance and walking on that pier. I was
Yeah.
hoping you might be able to enforce it.
Yeah. I know enough people, I'll say I was going to their boat.
So I think that brings up something I would like to ask the chief. Is there any problem if we extend the Jersich Park hours later with safety wise?
You're asking me if there's a safety issue associated with that, I would say no. Little kids down there at dark, that would be, of course, a consideration. It's more of just a parks management, vandalism, things like that. I think that the city administrator was on the right track when we're talking about maybe a set time, sunset or a set time, whichever is later. So then we don't have to think about what month it is or daylight savings time or anything like that. So there's a way to address that. And I think we can incorporate that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, great. So that will come back at second reading. Okay, new business number 8 is public hearing resolution 1223 Burnham Ridge Sewer and Water Utility Extension Agreement. Our report is our Public Works Director, Jeff Langham.
Thank you, Mayor. As you saw in the council bill, Rush Residential is in the process of permitting through Pierce County a 20-lot residential subdivision known as Burnham Ridge Plat, just outside city limits along Burnham Drive to the west side. But this area is in our urban growth area. I'm going to share my screen and show you the location of the site. I can zoom in here in a minute, but just so you are oriented, this is the prison. This is Highway 16. Oh, cursor, come on. This is Highway 16. This is the North Creek Plat. Here's Burnham Drive, and McCormick Creek Plat's right across the street. We'll zoom in a little bit more. You can see a little bit in the shadows along the lines here. That's Burnham Drive. We have, let me see, I forgot, sorry. There's a 7-acre lot that's going to be subdivided into 20 lots. Both state law and city code allow for these types of connections to be made to properties located outside city limits. The proposed plat would require an extension of both the city's water and sewer utility and connect to both the existing water main and the existing sewer main, which is the blue and green line on the screen, located in Burnham Drive. They've requested 20 ERUs, equivalent residential units of sewer, and 21 ERUs of water. The one additional water ERU is for irrigation purposes. The city currently has capacity to serve this plat. And Rush Residential has been made aware that they would be required to pay for all extensions of existing city utilities and pay general facilities charges at 1.5 times the in-city rates. The water and sewer utility extension agreements proposed here were presented to the Public Works Committee at the November 9th meeting with no objections. So that's it for my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Abersol.
Director Lamb, where does that property sit compared to the property that we were looking to acquire?
That property is quite a bit to the north.
Quite a bit. Okay, good.
Another one that's at 96 that's being built right now, kind of opposite Brian Stowe, or that this is above there.
Would you like me to bring the map back up?
Yeah, and pull it out so we see more of the area.
Zoom it out. Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Okay, let me.
I said it's that same area.
That parcel is going to disappear because I've zoomed out too far, but I'll put my cursor on it here in a second. Okay, so the parcel that is requesting utility extension agreement is here where my cursor is. The properties that we're looking at for conservation future is all in this area. This is the wastewater treatment plant right here.
Now, right to the north of the property that we're talking about is actually the city's other side of McCormick Creek, correct?
Over here?
No, just if you go up towards the freeway even higher, yeah, keep going up.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't McCormick Creek extend across the freeway just a little bit, even though it's just woods?
Oh, the creek itself.
No, that parcel.
Pembet Parks, yeah.
Penmet Parks. Isn't that little smidgen piece?
Yes, this is Penmet. Well, I mean, if you want me, I'll zoom in. I need to make sure I don't. Yes, that is part of the Penmet Park. That is on both sides of the freeway there.
So it's right below that.
Yep. And this is the old Del Stutz facility. So it's just immediately below that, south of it.
They know there's a gun club right across the street.
We do every Thursday.
I think something like that should be put into their escrow papers or their plots. In fact, we talked about that. I did several years ago to acknowledge to the residents that are going to buy those places that, yeah, we know there's a gun club.
So that's a very good point. This is in the county, and I think that I don't know where the process is in land use of the county. They don't have all their approvals. They're waiting for this. But that is something that could be proposed. I would suggest that the gun club take that up though with the county.
County.
Okay. Okay, let's see. I don't know who was first. Councilmember Himes.
Yeah, just a question. The sewer you're referring to here is wastewater, right?
Correct.
This excludes.
Sanitary sewer.
Excludes stormwater.
Correct. The city's stormwater utility can't serve outside city limits. Only the city's sanitary sewer and water system.
Okay. I guess the other question is I haven't seen any plat drawings of this thing. Do we have access to that? I realize this is Pierce County now that's doing this thing.
We have access to it. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't include it. I don't know if I've seen it actually, but we do have access to it.
Okay. I guess I'd be just interested in the assumption there relative to if they had to go the septic route versus the sanitary sewer route, has that had an impact on what they're proposing? Are they assuming they've already got sanitary sewers in the drawings that they've presented so far? That's the real question here.
I believe the plat was laid out, assuming they have sewer.
Okay.
Okay, and there are no grinder pumps on this, correct?
Correct. It's a very steep hillside and it would all flow by gravity down to Burnham Drive.
Councilmember Denson.
Councilmember Himes pretty much asked my question, but I just want to make sure if we did not approve city sewer and water, what happens to them? What are their choices?
If we did, I'll have to probably turn to Daniel to verify this, but they're in our urban growth area and they're in our city water service area. We would have to have a very good reason to not serve them city water and city sewer, because we've already said in our planning documents that we will serve these parcels water and sewer.
Yeah, we have to do this.
Yeah.
Yep, Councilmember Wook.
So what would be a good reason?
We ran out of water. We don't have sewer
I
capacity.
think the main would be capacity, but we do have capacity.
So,
to
but
provide
we,
service.
yes,
Excuse me, I was just going to mention that you all went through this with a property that was in the UGA that you removed from the UGA. And so you didn't approve it because it would, I think technically at that time it had already been removed, but it hadn't been finished. So that could possibly be a reason. But
East
when
Bay.
Yep.
Yep.
would it limit their ability to build the number of houses they wanted to build?
In some instances, it could. I think, though, that we're getting into a discussion that we need to have with community development and talking about annexation study, because essentially my proposal would be if the city council decides to not want to serve sewer outside the urban growth area, then the city should eliminate that as urban growth area. But that's an annexation study discussion, I believe. If it stays in our UGA, we're saying we're going to serve it for sewer.
Yep.
Is it legal? Is it written down someplace that we have to serve them?
I would have to ask Community Development Director Knutson to come up here, but
And let's ask the city attorney.
We've had this come up for years.
Yeah,
And it would set a precedence. I mean, we've set a precedence.
when you hold yourself out to provide the services in a certain area, you should continue to do that. And you have planning documents that speak to that.
Thank you.
Councilmember French.
Well, that was my question. Are we statutorily obligated to provide wastewater and water services to our UGA?
Well, again, I think it goes to whether you've held yourself out to do that. I would presume that there are locations within the UGA that aren't being served, next door or across the street or what have you. And so it might be different in some scenarios, but the planning documents are pushing urban services to this area, and it's not to remain rural.
Well, right, but so it's not necessarily statutorily written. I mean, it's been our practice in the past to extend these services. And that's.
So I'd have to pull that back up. I do remember pulling this all together last time we had this conversation. I don't have it in front of me. The statutes and the code talk about the permissibility of it, but that changes again when you hold yourself out and have it in planning documents.
Right. But I mean, just because you've done it in the past, it doesn't mean there can be a policy change to change the policy.
Well, the policy of the UGA is that is intended to be brought into the city at some point. That's the purpose. And so that is the policy that, and I think that's what Jeff was getting at. There's a whole separate conversation about annexation and how that should be treated. But I mean, I can't hypothesize what that change would be in the future, but right now, this is the intention of those areas.
Well, that's why I was trying to get to the bottom of the question. Is it statutorily, are we obligated statutorily to do it? Or is it just that we're obligated to do it because of past practices?
I think another way to ask that question, if we said no, what cause of action could they file against us?
Well, again, I'd have to go back to when I pulled this together the last time, but my guess is that they would have an action to force us to do it because of our past practice. But I can pull that together for you.
Right. Well, I mean, this is pretty innocuous in light of all the development that's been going on. But for future references, I would hope that maybe Councilmember Wook or the rest of the council would maybe follow up on where we're statutorily obligated to do something versus it's a policy that we followed, and as any policy, they change all the time. So,
well, we've also followed watching other cities get sued. At least I have.
Well, and
For denying it.
there's other RCWs that cover water and sewer, special purpose districts and their service areas and their obligations to serve. And I don't know if Daniel took a look at it from that angle. But my strong suspicion is when he does the research or pulls out what he had before, since it's in our service area, we have the capacity to serve it. It's going to be very difficult for us legally to be able to say no.
Councilmember Rodenberg.
Here's just a question to Mr. McKinney. You signed off on this proposal, so you've looked at all the recordings and agreement waiving to protest and all those kind of things, and you're fine with all that?
The materials in the packet?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So these are our documents, not theirs. Thank you.
Yes.
And on this, Jeff, on this one, I asked you now, normally if you build in, if you tie into our city and you're in the UGA, you can build twice the density as the county because you're in the city. But on this one, you said that they weren't going for more expensive homes. So they weren't doing that. They were going for larger lot size than they could have. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if it was because they're larger lot size because of more expensive homes or just because of the terrain makes it more challenging. But yeah, I don't think it would have matched city densities.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to open up the public comment portion of this. Tony, were there any comments that were submitted?
Nothing submitted, Your Honor.
Would anyone from the public or online like to comment? Okay, I will close the public comment and proceed to look for action by council. And I think council needs to take some action or there'll be consequences. So I'd like someone to put their light up. Councilmember Markley.
Move to approve resolution 1223 for sewer and water utility extension agreements with Rush Residential.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those, any further discussion? Okay, there's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I begrudgingly.
Unless you guys want to go into executive session, which is what I'm going to actually do if we don't pass this. I'm gonna Okay, we're going to do a roll call because I'm going to go into executive session if I don't get four. Councilmember Denson.
Councilmember Markley said this. No, I'm just kidding. I'll say aye.
Hey, Councilmember Rodenberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Wook.
Nay.
Councilmember Himes.
Abstain.
Councilmember Franich. You guys are going to make it really hard on me. Councilmember Franich. Yeah, there we got, okay, we got 2 yeses, we got 1 no, we got 1 abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, Councilmember, don't we have to have at least 3?
You really should be voting. I mean, this is a policy decision that council, I
Yeah.
mean, unless you have a reason to abstain, it's technically your obligation to vote on policy questions. So
Councilmember, it's true. That's why I said we'll go into the other room. Councilmember Abersold.
Aye.
Councilmember Markley.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Council reports, comments. Public Works Committee meeting was of November 9th, 2021. Councilmember Franich has a report.
Yes, well, we covered all the things under our business tonight. We didn't have any old business. We discussed the ADA transition plan. We discussed the ANSYS human-powered craft float storage fees. And we discussed the Burnham Ridge Sewer and Water Utility Extension Agreement. So I think we covered those all pretty well during the meeting tonight. And that was it. Our next meeting is December 14th.
Thank you. And other Councilmember Wu.
Oh, we're on council comments now?
Yep.
Oh, thank you. I would like to welcome Matthew Cohey as our new parks manager. And Matthew's going to be a very, very busy person is my guess with all we
And it's
have.
pronounced Keo.
Theo, sorry.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Matthew Keough. Thank you. And I'd like to say a kudos, send out a big kudos to our operations and wastewater works departments, because we've had a lot of rain. And to be out there cleaning the streets and cleaning the parks and keeping our equipment running in the wet and the cold and the dark is not always easy, especially for our wastewater folks who are there 24 hours a day. And so thank you to our entire operations and wastewater folks for doing such a good job.
Thank you. Councilmember Markley.
Yes, just briefly, I wanted to speak to the Sister City initiative that was mentioned in the public comments. I've had the pleasure, along with Mayor Kuhn, of speaking with one of the mayors in Croatia, and really have enjoyed meeting him, and also had the pleasure of speaking with the mayor in Buda, Norway. And I think that this can be something fairly simple and really interesting for the city to do. So I'm looking forward to maybe having something come at the December 13th council meeting to have an agreement with one of these cities before Mayor Kuhn's term is over.
That's great. So we'll bring a council bill December 13th to work towards some sister cities. Thank you for that report. And I would like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and enjoy their time with their family or friends. Councilmember Himes.
Move to adjourn.
There's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You can stay. You can stay. We'll chain you in here. Meeting adjourned.